Chapter 929. On the Borneo continent, where the heavens and Red Luan intersected, the flames of war were everywhere. The Demon Palace and Red Luan both sent out their troops. In the first battle, the Demon Palace won. Bu Tian Wu died in battle, and his soul returned to the 9 heavens. In the second battle, the second guardian of the Demon Palace, Bai Wangran, appeared on the battlefield. His arrogance intimidated the experts of Red Luan. The battle started again. In the distance, the Yama kings of the underworld descended from the sky. Their abnormally powerful auras shocked everyone. When everyone appeared, the experts on both sides immediately sensed something and looked into the distance. They are finally here. In front of the demon army, Jun Wenyin looked over and saw the figures with evil faces in the distance. His eyes were filled with interest. In front of the Red Luan army, Butian Pavilion Master's expression turned serious. They were finally here. Let us take over the second battle. In front of the Yama kings, the red-clothed Yama said calmly. Even though they were 100 miles away, everyone could hear the voice of the Yama kings clearly. The underworld intervened. A Yama king with an evil face mask walked out. His figure swept into the battlefield in an instant. His long skirt fluttered in the wind, and his otherworldly aura made people gasp in admiration. King Chujiang and God Luo Shui appeared casually in the battle of the demon slayers. On the battlefield, Bai Wangran's expression turned serious. He looked at the figure in front of him, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. This person was extraordinary. The body of a deity, interesting. In front of the Demon Palace's army, Jun Wenyin looked at the Yama kings in the battle and smiled. Without these opponents, this battle would be boring. King Chujiang of the underworld, please fight. The voice was soft and calm. The Luo god stood in the void. His aura was like an abyss, making people unable to see the bottom. Second guardian of the Demon Palace, please. Bai Wangran replied. As soon as he finished speaking, he no longer hesitated. He flipped his palm and started the battle. The white-clothed figure swept past in an instant. His body moved with the wind, and the wild mist turned into a storm that swept across the entire battlefield. Eternal instant. The Luo god raised his hand and set the sky with a single word. His control power surpassed the laws of the mortal world. In an instant, everything in the world froze as if it had died. Violent and extremely calm, this was the clearest confrontation. With a bang, the storm collided with the still space. Expanse after expanse of the world shattered like ice, and the scene of ice melting and snow melting extended for 500 kilometers. It was difficult to determine the outcome of this exchange. In the collapsing space-time, the white-robed figure flashed past. He clenched his palm into a fist and punched out. Luoshan stepped forwards. Her figure flashed, instantly avoiding the former's full-powered attack. Her eyes narrowed and the surrounding void condensed once more. Bai Wangran snorted coldly. He took a step forward, forcefully breaking through the restricted space. His body moved forward in an instant, his palms intersecting, his aura majestic. Luoshan's figure constantly flashed as she avoided the attack. She raised her hand and pointed at the sky. Reincarnation appeared again. Silent samsara. Space and time swirled around Bai Wangran. Space and time were in disorder around him, and they were about to devour him. Bai Wangran's eyes darkened. He lowered his vital energy and took in qi. He rode the qi and moved like the wind. He shattered the reincarnation with one palm and escaped. Reincarnation is everywhere in this world. You can't avoid it. Under the Yama mask, Luoshan spoke softly. Instantly, a black vortex appeared above the battlefield, sealing off the entire area. You're not human. Looking at the shocking scene around him, Bai Wangran said in a low voice. A human's control of the rules could never reach such a level. Is it important whether I am or not? Luoshan raised her hand. In the surrounding area, the black vortex kept spreading and devouring the former. You're not human, but you're helping the human race. I hate you even more. As soon as he finished speaking, Bai Wangran shouted. 9 wind pearls coiled out. Violent primordial wind swept out and turned into a green storm, colliding with the surrounding vortex. With a rumble, the world disintegrated. The space-time around them collapsed and turned into nothingness. The nothingness spread. 9 wind pearls flew out and landed in all directions. They turned into hurricanes and prevented the world from recovering. Now, without the rules of the world, how can you defeat me? Bai Wangran said coldly. His figure flashed past. His inner breath condensed on his palm. He fought in close combat and killed the deity. Luotian frowned. She looked at the area that was frozen by the wind pearls. Her figure flashed past quickly, avoiding the attacks again and again. Not good. In the distance, under the Yama mask, Mu Qianshang said, Luotian has the body of a deity. Her strongest strength is the control of the rules. The current situation is too unfavorable for her. Don't worry. In front of everyone, the red-clothed Yama said calmly. 100 years ago, I fought with Luotian. The body of a deity is not as simple as that. As soon as he said that, in the battle, Luotian, who had been retreating again and again, suddenly had a purple light in her eyes. She shook the battle with a palm. Her primordial chi surged and her primordial chi rushed into the sky. Not good. In front of the Demon Palace army, Jun Wendian looked at the battle with a solemn expression. Bai Wangran might lose. Brother, did something happen? Hearing Jun Wentian's words, Moon Weaver looked over and asked in confusion. Keep watching, Jun Wendian said. In the future, you must pay attention to this Yama. Her strength is enough to rank in the top 3 in the underworld. Before the two of them could finish their conversation, in the battle ahead, Luotian's divine essence surged. An indescribable strength surged out from her, causing everyone to feel fear. Divine punishment, borrowing sword from the heavens. With a soft shout, heaven and earth shook. Outside the battle, the wind and clouds rolled. Under everyone's gaze, thousands of sword lights gathered and turned into a stream of swords, rushing into the battle. In the battle, Bai Wangran's expression changed when he saw this. He used primordial chi, and a gale rose again to protect his body. Swish, swish. Tens of thousands of sword flashes flashed across the void. In an instant, they condensed into a golden celestial sword, which crashed into the wind beads blocking it. After a moment of stalemate, the 3 wind beads shattered, and the golden celestial sword continued to fly past and into the battle. The crucial moment had arrived. Everyone's expression turned serious. With a shout, the divine punishment sword fell from the sky and slashed at the demon. Around Bai Wangran, a gale swept, and it became faster and faster, blocking the heavenly sword's advance. The rumbling shook the 9 heavens. The 2 extreme forces kept colliding, and the aftershocks shook and spread everywhere. Both gods and demons were at their limits. Blood flowed from the corners of their mouths, and the primordial chi in their bodies was rapidly consumed. Suddenly, the golden sword light broke through the restraints of the gale and pierced through the body, bringing out a dazzling spray of blood. It was a shocking, and unbelievable scene. The heavenly sword pierced through the body. Bai Wangran's eyes trembled. He could not believe it and he could not accept it. His clothes were torn away, and blood spurted into the sky. Bai Wangran let out a long, painful groan. Golden flames burned, and the divine fire burned his body, forcibly taking back everything given by heaven and earth. His memories were stripped away, and his cultivation base dissipated. Little by little, everything he had obtained from this heaven and earth flew out of Bai Wangran's body. Accompanied by endless pain, they disappeared. Defeated. Even if he was brave and good at fighting, even if he had a plan at this moment, in the burning golden flames, everything was no longer important. Looking back one last time, he looked into the distance. So, this was what life was like. So, his life was so sad. The white-robed figure fell from the sky and crashed into the ground. Dust and sand flew up, and the golden flames were extinguished. In the end, everything returned to dust, and dust returned to dust. Chapter 930. On the Borneo continent, the battle between gods and demons came to an end. The god of Luo River appeared for the first time, shocking everyone present. He borrowed the sword from the heavens and killed the demons with one strike. His godly might terrified the demons and demons. The demons fell to the ground, covered in dust and sand. After fighting for a lifetime, all they could return to was a pile of yellow soil. On both sides of the battlefield, everyone was shocked. No one had expected the second guardian of the demon palace to lose, and in such a miserable way. Luotian turned around and walked out of the battlefield. His eyes were still calm, and there was no change in them. "Thank you for your hard work." In front of the Yama kings, the red-clothed Yama king said calmly, "It's what I should do." Luotian replied softly. He walked to the back of the red-clothed Yama king and said, "The rest is up to you." The red-clothed Yama king nodded and said, "You rest first. Next, our allies should also make their move." As he spoke, the situation of the three forces changed again. In the distance, auspicious clouds surged, and light shone in the sky. Many powerful figures descended from the sky. The three people in the lead had powerful auras, and they were eye-catching. Ji Ming, Shinji, and Baiyue appeared. Behind them, many experts of the Baiyue clan followed. Their true yuan surged and formed a cloud. The four forces appeared at the same time, and the situation became more complicated. The ninth disciple of the Mo Gate. On both sides of the battlefield, when the generals of the Demon Palace and the Butian Pavilion Master saw the newcomers, their expressions sank. However, due to the tense situation, they did not say anything. After 2 battles, the Demon Palace won 1 and lost 1. In front of the army, a cold light flashed in Jun Wentian's eyes. He stepped out and went to the 3rd battle. The appearance of the first guardian of the Demon Palace caused the 3 forces to pay attention to him. "It's our turn now," Ningchen said in front of the experts of the Baiyue clan. "I'll do it." Shenji replied calmly and stepped forward. "Senior, be careful. Jun Wenin has a 3rd eye, and his strength has surpassed the 3rd realm," Ningchen reminded. "I understand." Shinji replied and walked forward step by step. Looking at the back of Shinji, Ningchen's expression became serious, and he was worried. He had personally experienced Jun Wentian's strength. Even if he did not use his 3rd eye, he was definitely the strongest of the 4 guardians. "Don't worry. Although Jun Wenin is very strong, Shinji is not as weak as you think." Beside him, Baiyu said indifferently. His gaze was fixed in front of him, and he did not waver. On the battlefield, Jun Wentian's eyes lit up when he saw the purple-robed man walking over. "It's him? I didn't expect you to be the one to fight this time," Jun Wentian said calmly. "We can't always let the juniors stand at the front. It's time for us old folks to do something," Shinji said faintly. "Jun Wentian admires your choice. However, are you prepared to lose your life?" Jun Wentian replied calmly. With a wave of his left hand, the devil chi surged, and the 3 sharp blades reappeared. Boundless devil chi surged, sweeping out in all directions. On the other side, Shinji's expression did not change much when he saw this. He clenched his fists, and a black and white sword appeared in the vast dragon chi. The monarch weapon, the black and white phonograph, appeared for the first time. When the divine weapon appeared for the first time, its might was shocking. 2 dragon chi, 1 black and 1 white, flew up and coiled around the former monarch weapon. In the next moment, the monarch weapon moved, and the 3 sharp blades and the black and white phonograph clashed. Amid a shocking collision, raging waves swept out, reaching thousands of miles away. On the battlefield, the 2 dragon chi howled with unparalleled might. They moved together with their swords, suppressing the Devil Palace's first protector. Rumble. In the blink of an eye, several moves were exchanged. Shinji, who was at his peak for the first time, was surging with fighting spirit. His supreme fighting spirit was dazzling. All the experts on the battlefield were shocked. The divine weapon peak master actually had such a terrifying ability? I take back what I said just now. You are an opponent worthy of my full strength. Jun Wentian said with a serious expression as he waved his spear and pushed Shinji away. The 2 swords in Shinji's hands scattered the aftershock. He then said indifferently, "Then, bring out your full strength. Don't disappoint me." "As you wish." As soon as his words fell, Jun Wenyan took half a step forward and bellowed. In an instant, his devil chi soared into the sky like rolling devil waves, piercing through the 9 heavens. The broken cloud crown fell from the sky. Jun Wenyan's long hair fluttered in the wind, and a terrifying aura surged from his body. The aura of the Devil Palace's war god was on full display. On the opposite side, Shinji's face turned solemn. With a light bellow, he released his true essence. The black and white phonograph's dragon chi soared to the peak, and dragon roars resounded in the 9 heavens. Outside the battlefield, in front of the Reverence Moon Clan's experts, Ning Chen's face turned solemn. Both of them had pushed their cultivation to the peak, and this battle wouldn't last long. Young Master Ning, watch carefully. Shinji's strength is about to be displayed, Bai Yu said softly as he watched the battle from the side. On the battlefield, the devil chi and dragon chi swept across the battlefield, and a tyrannical pressure continued to spread out. The forces several thousand miles away could clearly feel the pressure. A split second later, the two extreme forces collided. The devil chi and dragon chi roared in all directions, and the battlefield was split into two. One sword of spring and autumn, 10,000 creations illumination. The black and white phonograph's dragon chi soared into the sky, and within the 10,000 creations, 2 sword rays pierced through the air, followed by 2 dragon shadows, and slashed at the Devil Palace's war gods. Good timing! Seeing this, Jun Wentian's eyes lit up, and his battle intent soared. With a light bellow, he took a step forward and spun his spear to meet Shinji's attack. Humans had their Xiantian realm, and weapons had their Hotian realm, and when the divine weapons clashed, heaven and earth resonated. Amidst the earth-shattering collision, 2 crisp sounds rang in everyone's ears. Cracks appeared on the 3 divine weapons, and they were showing signs of crumbling at the same time. The 2 swords returned to Shinji's hands. Looking at the cracks on the swords, a trace of pity flashed across his eyes. His true essence protected the swords, and purple chi soared to the sky. On the opposite side, Jun Wentian's face sank, and the devil chi in his 3-pointed double-edged blade surged. I respect your determination. 9 Revolution's mysterious art, swift lightning. Since the battle had reached this stage, Jun Wenyan used his moves to respect his enemy. Jun Wenyan flipped his palm and absorbed the devil chi. In an instant, thunder rumbled from the 9 heavens. On the 3-pointed double-edged blades, the supreme devil chi could frighten even gods and ghosts. Separated by life and death for many years, the soul has never entered the dream. Lin Qian Taoist, Hongdu guest, can use sincerity to enter the soul. Touched by the emperor's thoughts, he instructed the necromancer to search diligently. Riding the chi in the air, he ran like lightning, ascending to the heavens and entering the earth to seek. Up to the heavens and down to the underworld, he could not find you anywhere. Suddenly, a poem sounded, and an incomprehensible brilliance flashed across the eyes of the former emperor. Dragon chi soared into the sky, and the black and white recording art appeared. 2 dazzling sword lights surged into the sky, and the divine might was shocking. Not good. Hearing the poem, Bai Yu, who was outside the battle, was shocked, and his eyes changed drastically. Then, the Thunder Descent sword met the attack. Amidst a terrifying collision, the sky above the battlefield collapsed, and the scene of doomsday shocked the world. The 3 divine weapons shattered, and the black and white recording art, the divine spear cried. Arg! Amidst a heavy groan, blood flowed out from the corner of Jun Wentian's mouth, and he retreated a few steps. He was shocked to see an illusory figure standing in the sky amidst the roaring black and white dragon chi. He had shed his physical body, and his cultivation level was rising endlessly, breaking through the limits of the world and reaching the 4th level. In ancient times, there was a virtuous sage who could die without regrets after hearing the Tao in the morning. Today, there was a divine armament who used his body to seek the Tao, and was the only one in the world. In an instant, everyone's expression changed, and they were filled with emotions. So, you already had the will to die. Outside the battle, sadness flashed across Bai Yu's eyes. Using his body to seek the Tao, was it worth it? Suddenly, I heard that there was a celestial mountain on the sea, and the mountain was illusory. exquisite pavilions, 5 clouds, and many fairies. Among them, there was one who was too real, with snow-white skin and uneven appearances. Jin K. West Wing knocked on the jade spear, and taught Xiao Yu to report success. I heard that the Han clan's son of heaven sent, and in the Jihua tent, the soul was frightened. The poem echoed in the sky, and everyone present heard it. In the sky above the battlefield, an illusory figure flashed past, and with extreme speed, arrived before the demon in an instant. Jun Wentian's expression changed, and he opened his demon eye again without hesitation. Amidst the earth-shaking phenomenon, a dim light shone from the demon's glabella, and a beam of light that surpassed the limits of the world shot out. It was violent and destructive. The dim light pierced through the demon's body, and purple gas filled the sky. However, the divine armament did not seem to notice it. He pointed his right hand at the demon's glabella, and an incomparably strong soul power entered, sealing the demon eye instantly. Jun Wenyin felt a sharp pain, and the demon eye on his glabella cracked. Blood flowed out, and his aura dissipated continuously. Back off! With a furious roar, Jun Wenyin countered forcefully. With a flip of his palm, Jun Wenyin summoned heavenly thunder, which shook the battle. The world rumbled, and the aftermath shook continuously. Blood flowed out from the demon eye on Jun Wentian's glabella, and he was heavily injured. You! Anger rushed to his heart, and Jun Wenyin staggered, vomiting another mouthful of blood. He barely managed to stabilize himself. Looking back at the world below, there is no Chang, and only dust and fog. I can only express my affection with an old object, and send the golden alloy hairpin. The hairpin is made of gold, and the hairpin is made of gold. But my teaching heart is as strong as gold, and we will meet again in heaven and on earth. The final poem echoed between heaven and earth. The divine armament, who had exhausted all his soul power, looked at the sky, and a smile appeared on his face. Heavens, he won. Did she see it? Good friend, have a safe journey. Far away in the endless starry sky, in the dawn moon Chang, the dawn moon tower's master, who was wearing a silver-gray cloak, stood quietly in front of the window, looking into the distance and murmuring softly. On the Borneo continent, the divine armament seemed to have sensed something. He looked into the distance, nodded lightly, and said, "Good friend, I will wait for you at the peak of the immortal path. From today onwards, I will leave the matters of the mortal world to you." As soon as he finished speaking, the divine armament's figure gradually disappeared, and his soul returned to heaven and earth, disappearing from the mortal world. Senior divine armament. In front of the Baiyue clan's experts, Ningchen looked at the divine armament's figure in the battle, and felt extremely guilty. This is his choice, and it has nothing to do with you. At the side, Baiyue forcefully suppressed the sadness in his heart and said in a deep voice, "Don't lose your calm. This battle is not over yet, and we still need to do what he hasn't done." Ningchen nodded and clenched his fists, suppressing the emotions in his heart. On the battlefield, Jun Wenyin shouted softly, and activated his devil yuan to suppress the chaotic true qi in his body. On the Borneo continent, the Butian Pavilion Master and the leaders of the various sects saw this and immediately gave the order. Under the order, the 100,000 Red Luan army moved together, and like a flood, they pressed against the thousands of devil army. Chapter 931. On the island of Borneo, a great battle broke out. The Red Luan army surged out like a tidal wave, pressing down on the devil army. War drums beat, flames of war lit up the sky. War chariots drove past one after another like mountains, blocking out the sun. In front of the devil army, Moon Weaver's figure flashed and arrived at the battlefield. She carried the severely injured Jun Wenyin and swung the inverted moon in her hand, opening a path to survival. The sword light opened the path to the underworld. Hundreds of devil army soldiers were swallowed by the sword light. Broken limbs flew all over the sky. Attack! In front of the Yama kings, the red-clothed Yama king ordered coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, the Yama kings obeyed the order and rushed forward. At the same time, the experts of the moon-worshipping clans stood in front of them. Baiyue waved his hand and ordered the troops to attack. The three sides moved at the same time, attacking the Devil Palace's army. Bai Wangran died in the battle and Jun Wenyan was severely injured. The Devil Palace was in danger. Butterfly in the flower. On the battlefield, Moon Weaver called out in a low voice. As soon as she finished speaking, the demonic butterfly in front of the devil army moved. Her sleeves intertwined and extended for thousands of feet. When the demonic butterfly attacked, Flower Burial, Chi Feng, and the other Red Luan experts didn't even have time to react. They only saw the black blade light before they lost consciousness. At this moment, the female supreme appeared in the void. She stepped into the battlefield and raised her hand to grab the demonic butterfly that was slaughtering. The blade and the palm collided, causing a loud explosion. Dim light rose around the two as the 9 underworlds devoured the sky. As the palms intertwined, the blade was sharp. The area around the two instantly became a forbidden land. The dim light said that there was no vitality. The terrifying devouring power forcefully swallowed everything. In order to capture the demonic butterfly, the female supreme released her cultivation. Dim light swept out like an azura descending to the world. Her slender hands moved, shaking the world. The demonic butterfly waved her blade and the only blade skill in the world appeared again. As the two experts clashed, a figure in plain clothes flashed past. Taishur appeared and suppressed the demonic butterfly together with the female supreme. Knowing destiny appeared in the battle and the butterfly in the flower felt the pressure increase. The Flower Burial's tears in her hand shone and a blade appeared in her blade. She waved her sleeves and blocked the joint attack of the two experts. At this moment, far away in the demon domain, Jie Tiance was looking at the sky in front of him in the sacred palace. He formed a seal with his right hand and runes circled around him, revealing his mastery of incantations. Following the actions of the saint from the demonic domain, cracks appeared in the void above the island of Borneo. For gigantic demonic shadows appeared in the sky. They were hundreds of feet tall, and their faces were ferocious. The expressions of the Yamakings of the underworld darkened upon seeing this, and they all flew off in different directions. In the next instant, a Yamaking appeared in front of each and every one of the devilish projections, blocking their path. On the island of Borneo, the red-clothed King Yenluo was moving rapidly towards the two figures amidst the army. Dozens of kilometers away, the Moon Weaver sensed something. Her expression hardened as she swung the inverted moon in her hand towards the newcomer. With a loud clang, the two weapons clashed. The might of the divine artifact was revealed, and the red-robed Yama's legs sank into the ground. Swish! The sound of an arrow piercing through the air rang out. Before he could react, a green arrow pierced through the air, chasing after his soul and taking his life. The Moon Weaver's pupils constricted, and she subconsciously moved to the side. The arrow brushed past her shoulder, and blood splattered everywhere, dyeing her clothes red. Despicable! The Moon Weaver's face darkened. However, before she could finish speaking, another arrow pierced through the air, full of murderous intent. With Qin Guang's help, the King Yenluo's body moved, and the two Yamakings joined forces. In the face of the two Yamakings, even someone as strong as the Moon Weaver was in a difficult position. The situation changed rapidly, and the three guardians of the demonic palace were in deep trouble, each in danger. Moon Weaver, Jun Wenyan, how pathetic! At this moment, an old voice rang out in the sky. Then, demonic light illuminated the world, and the three sects appeared at the same time, shocking all the experts present. Not good. In the battle, the red-clothed King Yenluo raised his head and looked at the three people shining in the sky with a serious expression. The appearance of the top three sects of the Seven Sins sect, the Trifling sect, immediately changed the situation of the battle. Endless demonic power swept down, and thousands of Red Luan soldiers exploded, unable to withstand the terrifying power of the three sections. Demon body, do it? The situation changed again. The red-clothed King Yenluo spoke in the battle. Understood. As he spoke, the void stirred, and a black-clothed figure covered in black flames appeared. His face was covered with a ghostly face, and it was terrifying. The underworld's experts are really endless. In the sky, Xing Huizong looked at the black-clothed figure that appeared in front of him and spoke. I'll leave this person to you. Ma Yingyu and I will go help the others. Moon Illumination Zong said calmly, and then his figure flashed and plunged toward the battlefield below. When the demon body saw this, his figure flashed, and the Avicii Hell Palace appeared on his left hand. It enlarged rapidly and blocked the two of them. Experts of the underworld, your opponent is not us. Yu Yao and Ma Yingyu's figures flashed and avoided the ghost palace before plunging downward. Sickly King's 3-sun sword. The demon body shouted and clenched his right hand. Black flames soared into the sky, and a peerless divine weapon appeared. 3 suns coiled around it and attacked the 3 sects separately. Oh! Yu Yao and Ma Yingyu turned around and looked at the incoming black suns with surprise. What a strange divine weapon. It actually had such a shocking power. The 2 sects raised their hands, and the sun and moon appeared at the same time. A terrifying power spread out and instantly swallowed the black suns to resolve the crisis. In the sky, Xing Huizong also revealed his devil aura. Starlight dazzled and blocked the black suns. You want to stop the 3 sects by yourself? Your confidence makes me have a whole new level of respect for you. Xing Huizong said indifferently and took a step forward. Starlight dazzled, and his devil aura carried the power of the stars in the 9 heavens as it slammed toward the person in front of him. The demon body waved his sword, and black flames swept out. The celestial slayer's sharpness and the sickly king's fierceness reappeared. The 2 experts fought, and after a few moves, they were both shocked. It turned out that the underworld and devil palace had such experts. In the battlefield below, Yu Yao and Ma Yingyu arrived, and the situation of the battle changed immediately. In front of the heaven-mending pavilion master and the left and right guardians, one of the Moon Illumination sect's people appeared and blocked the 3 of them from assisting. On the other side of the battlefield, the leader of the 3 supremes, Ma Yingyu, walked over with a calm expression. However, the terrifying pressure on his body surpassed everyone present, and it was shocking. You can't touch these 2 people. After a few steps, Ma Yingyu arrived in front of Moon Weaver. He flipped his palm and shook off the battle. He looked at the red-clad Yama in front of him and said calmly, "You've just arrived and you want them. Aren't you being too rude?" The red-clad Yama looked at the person in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Sush." The sound of an arrow piercing through the sky resounded. Behind Ma Yingyu, a green arrow shot out and attacked the enemy. A gentleman can't shoot behind his back. Do the underworld's rulers like to hide their heads and show their tails? Ma Yingyu turned around and raised his hand to catch the arrow. Then he clenched his fist and shattered the arrow in his hand. In the distant sky, Luo Xingchen's eyes narrowed as he sent a voice transmission. "Be careful, Jiming. This person isn't simple." "Understood." Under the King of Hell's evil face, the phoenix body nodded and replied solemnly. In the distant battlefield, Ning Chun felt the change in the situation where the phoenix body was. He shifted his gaze and looked at the pure and beautiful figure standing in the sky in front of him. He said, "Senior Baiyu, please make your move." Chapter 932. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. Shinji proved his Dao and severely injured Jun Wenyin. At the critical moment, the top 3 sects of the 7 Sins sect, the 3 Talents sect, appeared. The sun, moon, and star shone brightly and turned the situation around. On the 3 battlefields, 3 peerless powerhouses, Yuan Shiyu, Yu Yao, and Xing Hui, joined the battle. Their powerful combat strength shocked everyone. In front of the heaven-mending pavilion master and the left and right guardians, one person from the Moon Illumination sect blocked the pass. Above the crowd, the Star Brilliance sect blocked the underworld. At the most critical moment, the strongest person from the 7 Sins sect appeared. The leader of the 3 talents, Yuan Shiyu, stepped forward. His powerful pressure caused those who got close to him to explode. The sun, moon, and star, the leader of the 3 Talents sect who fought for the son of the Devil Palace, had a shocking cultivation base. Half of his body had entered the 4th level, and he was only a step away from dominating the world. When Yuan Shiyu appeared, the red-clothed King Hades immediately felt the pressure increase. His expression turned solemn. In the distance, the main body sensed it and immediately asked for help. In the void, Yu, who was covered in pure moonlight, nodded and walked forward. So close yet so far. Wherever the moonlight shone, the divine might would follow. Yu, the venerable who had inherited the moon god's power, had surpassed the limit. Step by step, he stepped between heaven and earth and stepped on everyone's hearts. Yu, the venerable, turned around and looked at the newcomer. A strange light flashed in his eyes. It seemed like the power that surpassed heaven and earth in the reverence moon ancient land was obtained by this person. Powerful devil cultivator, let's fight somewhere else. Yu looked at the leader of the Seven Sins sect and said calmly, "Sure." Yu, the venerable, nodded and stepped forward, flying toward the horizon. Yu leaped and followed him. In the sky above the Borneo continent, the stars shone brightly. In the endless starry sky, the two arrived. Without saying anything, the flames of battle began. Their figures crossed each other and their palms collided. Dazzling brilliance collided. The divine moon and devil sun clashed violently. This was a battle that had surpassed the pinnacle and was approaching the fourth level. The battle had only just begun. Above the starry sky, the great stars began to shake violently. As the two exchanged blows, the meteors crumbled one after another, crushed into dust by the power of the divine moon and the demonic sun. On the island of Borneo, the powerhouses felt the earth-shattering battle in the sky, and their eyes were filled with shock. In the void, the demonic body's expression turned gloomy. He flipped his left hand and pointed his finger at the sword. Instantly, the sickly king's heavenly sword appeared again. Black suns appeared one after another, revolving around his body, howling and rumbling, shaking the heaven and earth. Sick King's 100 Suns sword. The 100 suns appeared and covered the sky. Endless fire elemental energy spread out and distorted the sky above Borneo. Stars passing through. Seeing the Black Sun's shocking power, Sect Master Xing Huizong also activated his true essence. The brilliance of the stars shone brightly, blocking the 100 suns' move. In the next moment, the 100 suns shook the stars. Amidst the violent collision, the 100 suns shattered, and a black meteor shower fell from the sky. Huge black fireballs fell one after another like rain, smashing onto the island of Borneo. It was a scene of doomsday. Below them, the two armies fighting suffered heavy casualties. Tens of thousands of Alliance and Demon Palace experts were swallowed by the rain of fire and disappeared completely. Your Excellency is truly ruthless. You don't even care about the life and death of your own allies. Sect Master Xing Huizong glanced at the miserable scene below and said, "Those who achieve great things must have sacrifices. This world is one where the strong preys on the weak. If you can't resist, you will be at the mercy of others," the demonic body said coldly. "Your Excellency is truly more like a demon than us demons." Sect Master Xing Huizong said calmly, "You praise me too much." The demonic body replied and held the sickly king's heavenly sword horizontally. His body didn't move, but his sword intent was activated. Seeing this, Sect Master Xing Huizong's expression turned serious. He didn't dare to underestimate the demonic body in front of him anymore. He concentrated his energy and drew the power of the stars in the sky. The two of them circulated their energy once more. In a battle of life and death, neither of them dared to be careless. In the distant battle, the red-clothed King Yama and King Qingguang of the underworld worked together to protect the Demon Slayer Palace. One in the light and one in the dark, suppressing the power of the divine equipment. The injuries on Moonweaver's body became more and more serious. She dodged the arrows, but she couldn't dodge the colder sword. The divine equipment was heaven-defying, but it couldn't go against the underworld's orders. A sword pierced through her body, forcing her to retreat several steps. Moonweaver used her body to protect the heavily injured Jun Wentian, unwilling to retreat even half a step. Blood dripped onto her dress. Moonweaver swung her sword to push away the person in front of her. Then she felt a cold intent behind her and immediately dodged. The azure arrow tore through the demonic body's clothes and sank into the ground, disappearing without a trace. 9 Heaven's star-plucking hand, reverse formlessness. The red-clothed figure flashed past, and the star-plucking ultimate technique appeared once more. She was heavily injured again, and her body flew back 300 meters. Moonweaver stopped 100 meters away and vomited a mouthful of blood onto the ground. The star-plucking ultimate technique, disperse origin and reverse meridians. Moonweaver, who had taken on all the power of the palm, felt her true essence overflow. She couldn't believe it, but she had to believe it. The 4 great protectors of the Demon Slayer Palace had all fallen into a dead end in this battle. I can't lose here. Her brother's safety depended on her. Moonweaver barely stabilized herself and wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth. With a shout, she released all the demonic essence in her body. The surging dark silver demonic essence illuminated the cold moon in the sky. Instantly, the moon demon appeared, its demonic power multiplying. An instant later, the moon demon possessed her. Blood gushed out of Moonweaver's body as she used her body as a medium to borrow the power of the gods. In unbearable pain, Moonweaver's body began to crack, spreading to every part of her body. Blood splashed everywhere, dazzling to the eye. In front of her, the red-clothed Yama's expression sank. Without further delay, his figure flashed past, the tip of his sword pressing down. Moonweaver opened her eyes amidst the surging blood mist. They were scarlet and abnormally terrifying. If you want my life and my brother's, then pay with your life. The divine artifact slashed down, and the blood-soaked divine sword's power increased several times. Boundless blood-colored demonic waves flashed as it slashed down. The red-clothed Yama's eyes narrowed as he stopped and instantly retreated 300 meters away. His speed was hard to hide, so fast that it was unbelievable. Moonweaver's pupils constricted, her mind shaken. You are M.O. The Phoenix's extreme speed was unique in the world. Moonweaver immediately understood, but before she could finish speaking, she saw the red-clothed figure turn back in an instant. His sword was as fast as lung cans as it slit her throat. Leak the secret when you reach hell. The sword drank in the red, dazzling to the eye. Before she could react, the battle ended. With another muffled groan, Moonweaver raised her hand to cover the sword mark on her throat. She could not hide the shock in her eyes as she staggered back step by step. She wanted to say something, but with her throat cut, she could not say a word. Brother! Unable to say the words, Moonweaver looked at the unconscious Jun Wenyin behind her. A final gentleness flashed in her eyes as she used the last of her strength to pour it into the divine artifact. Then, with a palm strike, the power of the divine artifact sent Jun Wenyin out of the battle. The red-clothed Yama's eyes turned cold. His figure flashed, and his sword mercilessly pursued. Whoosh! In an instant, a beautiful figure covered in blood flashed past, blocking the Yama's path with her body. The sword pierced through her body. Blood spurted out, covering the red-clothed figure and her eyes. Brother! With a final murmur, Moonweaver looked at the stream of light in the distance. A gratified smile appeared on her face as her body collapsed weakly. Chapter 933. In the polo battlefield, the war drums were beating, and the killing intent shook the heavens. The death of the Devil Palace's third guardian, Moonweaver, shocked everyone. In the 3 battlefields, the Sun, Moon, and Star sect felt Moonweaver's aura gradually disappearing. They looked over and were shocked. All of you deserve to die 1,000 times. Moon Illumination sect snapped back to reality. Killing intent filled his face as his terrifying cultivation base erupted. In the battlefield, the Heaven-Mending Pavilion Master and the left and right guardians immediately felt the killing intent lock onto them. Their hearts turned cold. A figure flashed past, and the devil moon pierced through the sky. The 3 heaven-mending powerhouses condensed their origin energy to block the attack. With a loud bang, they flew out together. Blood splattered from the sky. The 3 heaven-mending powerhouses looked at the person in front of them with shock on their faces. All of you will be buried with her. Moon Illumination sect was furious. He walked forward step by step and stood in the devil moon. His territory energy was activated, and the area within 100 miles turned into a cold hell. Oh no! The heaven-mending pavilion master and the left and right guardians' faces changed. Their hearts sank as they looked at the sealed space around them. The three of them were in danger. In the distance, the red-clad Yama swept his gaze across them. After a while, he retracted his gaze and took a step forward, heading toward the battlefield further away. In the Devil region, the moment Moon Weaver died in the battle, a dark silver lamp that had been burning for 1,000 years in the sacred palace was extinguished. Jie Tian's expression changed instantly. He waved his hand and opened the sky screen again. The black and white chess pieces flew out and fixed the mystery of the heavens. Jie Tian's forcefully destroyed his body, and his peerless ability reappeared. He forcefully looked through time and space at the battlefield in the distance. Saint Arbiter, what happened? At this moment, a majestic voice sounded in the main hall. Reporting to the Devil Master, Moon Weaver and Bai Wangran died in the battle. Jie Tian bowed and said, Moon Weaver died in the battle as well? There was a hint of surprise in the majestic voice as he said, her strength is second only to Jun Wenin. There's actually someone in this world who can take her life? Reporting to the Devil Master, it should be someone from the underworld. Now that we've lost Jun Wenin, Moon Weaver, and Bai Wangran, the Devil Palace is in a disadvantageous position, Jie Tian said calmly. I sense the auras of the three sections. The majestic voice. Jie Tian nodded and said, in order to prevent any unexpected changes, I have already sent the three sects over. However, I did not expect that the opponent's hidden strength would be so powerful. Now, it is very difficult for the three sects to reverse the situation. Saint Arbiter, our Devil Palace has suffered heavy losses in this round. Within the Great Hall, the dignified voice rang out once more. It is my plan that has failed. I have disappointed the Demon Lord. Jie Tian bowed again and said, our opponent's strength truly exceeded our expectations. The responsibility isn't entirely on you. In the main hall, the Demon Lord's voice continued to reverberate. He said calmly, this time let me do it. Jie Tian, before I come out of seclusion, don't let such an accident happen again. Jie Tian bowed and answered. At the same time, the flames of war on the island of Borneo intensified. The situation on the Demon Slayer battlefield was different. In the starry sky, Reverend Moon faced the leader of the Seven Sins sect alone. The divine moon illuminated the world and the demonic sun burned the sky. The battle intent of the two strongest people was at the peak. Both of them knew that their victory or defeat would determine the direction of the war. Therefore, neither of them dared to be careless. The power of the celestial demons collided continuously with each other. Its power was destructive. Around the two of them, meteorites were crushed into dust in the battle and completely disappeared from the starry sky. Strong, so strong that it was difficult to describe. It had transcended the boundary and was comparable to the combat power of the fourth realm. Every move of theirs could cause the sky to sink and the earth to fall. Divine technique, half-moon sky. The opponent was extraordinary. Reverend Moon no longer held back. He flipped his left palm and unleashed a rising moon palm. In an instant, above the starry sky, a huge divine moon appeared. Its terrifying power illuminated the starry sky. Up to the 9 heavens, down to the heavens. When the divine technique appeared, Reverend Moon did not dare to be careless. He channeled his ultimate essence, and the demonic sun appeared. It rushed from the yellow spring to the 9 heavens, and the strongest demonic powers spread out. The celestial demon techniques that transcended the boundary and temporarily reached the fourth realm collided. After a moment of silence, the entire sky above Borneo shook violently. The light was so bright that it was difficult for everyone to open their eyes. The red-clothed King Hades, Moon Illumination Sect, and Star Brilliance Sect looked up at the sky with serious expressions. No one expected this battle to be so intense. After a moment of shock, the red-clothed King Hades suppressed his emotions. His figure flashed past as he continued to rush towards the battle ahead. In the distance, in the crisscrossing water-sleeve sky net, Demonic Butterfly fought against the combined forces of Knowing Destiny and the Chongling Female Supreme. Her saber was in her sleeves. Her skill in the saber was unprecedented. Her attacks were fierce and forceful, and her defense was airtight. Even the two strong people could not gain the upper hand as they were worried. At this moment, a red light flashed past and quickly arrived at the battlefield. Her astral soul fell and slashed open the layers of Skynet. The Phoenix body appeared in the battle. The three strong people joined forces, and the situation changed instantly. The two swords blocked the two sabers. After a moment of stalemate, the Chongling female supreme raised her hand and grabbed the former's shoulder blade, wanting to lock her body. The situation of trapping the demon was about to be completed. At this moment, the wind and clouds in the 9 heavens changed. Demonic clouds rolled, and a force that surpassed all living beings swept down. It was unprecedentedly powerful and shook the entire battlefield. This battle ends here. All of you retreat. As the voice sounded, an illusory figure appeared in the 9 heavens. He said calmly. Then he waved his right hand and thousands of demonic waves swept out. In the next moment, muffled groans sounded on the battlefield. Tens of thousands of figures exploded, and blood sprayed like rain. In the three-sided battle, the three bodies of knowing destiny, the Chongling female supreme, and Baiyue's expressions darkened at the same time. They gathered their essence to block the demonic power. With a bang, they took a few steps back. The demonic power shook the world. With just one move, tens of thousands of soldiers were forced to retreat. No one was a match for it. Greetings, Devil Master. In the void, Hu Jinyu, Yu Yao, and Xing Hun bowed respectfully. Greetings, Devil Master. Below, tens of thousands of soldiers in the Devil Army knelt down and saluted at the same time. Retreat. In the demonic clouds, the Devil Master said lightly. After receiving the order, the demons stood up and retreated from the battlefield. On the battlefield below, Ningchen looked at the demonic butterflies retreating from the battlefield with a hint of anxiety in his eyes. Don't be rash. Beside him, the Chongling female supreme glanced at the terrifying existence in the sky and reminded in a low voice. Ningchen's body trembled. He suppressed the emotions in his heart and did not make a move. In the 9 heavens, the Devil Master waved his hand. Below, 2 broken bodies flew up and disappeared into the clouds. Brave warriors shouldn't be buried here. The Devil Master said calmly. In an instant, the demonic clouds in the sky retracted and his figure disappeared. Below, Ningchen clenched his fists tightly. He was extremely unwilling to accept this. Knowing destiny, find another chance in the future. Beside him, the Chongling female supreme sighed softly. Just now, they were so close to bringing back the butterflies and the flowers. What a pity. Retreat. Not far away, the red-clothed Yama King said in a low voice. In the sky, the Yama Kings received the order and left in a flash. The Devil Palace and the underworld retreated. On the other side, Baiyue's figure descended from the sky and also gave the order to retreat. The experts of the Baiyue clan received the order and left together. Pavilion Master. On the battlefield, the left and right protectors of the Butian Pavilion looked at the Pavilion Master in front of them and asked with concern, Pavilion Master, are your injuries okay? I'm fine. The Butian Pavilion Master raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His gaze swept across the army that had suffered heavy losses. His expression was abnormally gloomy. With the help of the underworld and the Baiyue clan, their losses were still so shocking. The Devil Palace's strength was too terrifying. The most terrifying thing was that the Devil Master seemed to be coming out of seclusion. At the intersection of the Red Luan, All Heavens, and Crepe Myrtle, many figures flew over. The Yama King in the lead waved his hand and opened the divine restriction. Behind him, the Yama Kings followed and disappeared into the divine restriction. Everyone, go back and recover your true yuan. I will inform you if there is anything. In front of the Yama Kings, the red-clothed Yama King raised his hand and took off his evil face mask. Everyone nodded and took off their masks one by one, walking towards their respective palaces. In front of the Yama King palace, Ningchen walked over. Inside the palace, was anxiously waiting. When she saw Ning Chen walk over, she immediately ran over. Ning Chen, mistress left. Her grabbed Ning Chen's arm and said anxiously. Hearing this, Ning Chen's expression shook. He suppressed his emotions and said, "Did she say anything before she left?" "No, she just said that she would be leaving for a period of time. She didn't say anything else." Her said anxiously, "Ning Chen, why did mistress suddenly leave? Did something happen?" Ning Chen shook his head lightly and comforted her, "Don't worry. A man's strength is not weaker than anyone now. Nothing will happen." Did she leave because of Senior Shinji? He was far away in the underworld. How did A Man know about this? Very far away, on the Shinji peak, a stream of light flashed. A beautiful figure wearing a white dress walked out silently in front of the peak. She waved her hand and summoned the purple cloud sword, inserting it into the peak. Returning to its old place, the purple cloud sword seemed to have sensed something. The sword trembled and cried out continuously. Hearing the clear, sorrowful cry from the sword, A Man's eyes flashed with sadness. She landed on her knees and knelt in front of the peak. "Godfather, your daughter is back." A cold wind blew past. The red maple leaves drifted in the sky. It was so beautiful that it dyed the entire Shinji peak red like fire. Far away, on the island of Borneo, which had been burned by the flames of war, there was not a single place that was intact after the calamity. The cold moon hung high in the sky. The cold moon sprinkled coldness on the ground, making the silent night even colder. Just at this moment, a beautiful figure in a white dress walked over from the island of Borneo. Her hair fluttered in the wind. There was not a single flaw on her flawless face. Her temperament was extraordinary, like a fairy that no one dared to profane. Somehow, Mu Qingxue, who had walked out of the inner world, found this place step by step. He walked through the flames of war and walked through the frost. Demon soldiers and Red Luan experts who had died in battle were everywhere. Their bodies had been burned to ashes in the flames of war. The spirituality of the broken divine weapons continued to seep out. Perhaps in another 10 or 20 years, they would become scrap metal. After a great battle, countless experts had fallen. Chaotic energy filled the world. The aura was so oppressive that no one was willing to stay for long. After walking for a long time, Mu Qingxue suddenly stopped. He closed his eyes and released his divine sense. He sensed a faintly discernible familiar aura in the world. After searching for a while, Mu Qingxue opened his eyes and looked into the distance. A light flashed across his eyes. He had indeed been here before. The auras of those friends were also here. Did he find them all? After 100 years, they had become even stronger. A few breaths later, a beautiful figure in white flashed across the island of Borneo. She turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the night sky. Chapter 934. In the demon domain, the saint of the demon palace, dressed in a blue brocade robe, stood in front of the temple. After pondering for a long time, he walked towards the back of the temple. In the depths of the demon domain, in a forbidden land surrounded by demon chi, Jie Tiance walked over and stopped in front of a huge grotto. "Demon Lord." Jie Tiance bowed and said respectfully. In the grotto, strange lights flickered, sometimes strong and sometimes weak. An abnormally powerful pressure loomed, like an ancient giant beast that could devour people at any time. "Saint, what's the matter?" In the demon cave, a majestic voice came out calmly. Moon Weaver and Bai Wangran died in battle, Jun Wenyan was seriously injured, and now the armies have no generals to use. Please give us generals, Jie Tiance said. The Seven Sins sect is not weak, why don't you use them? In the demon cave, the demon lord's voice came out again. Although the Seven Sins sect is strong, they are not good at leading troops. I need a general who can fight well, not a brave man, Jie Tiance replied. In the demon cave, there was a short moment of silence, and then a majestic voice came out calmly. Release the Earth Chief. Thank you, Demon Lord. Jie Tiance bowed respectfully and said, Have you found the whereabouts of the 10 kings of hell? In the demon cave, the demon lord's voice came out. Judging from the location and direction of the kings of hell, hell should be between the All Heavens and the Red Phoenix Galaxy. As for the specific location, we still need time to infer, Jia Tian's replied. Get this done as soon as possible. In addition, it's time to get rid of some clowns. The demon palace's plan to dominate the world cannot be hindered by these people. The demon lord's voice sounded again. I understand. Jia Tiansu responded and didn't say anything else as he stepped back. Half an hour later, in a sinister place in the east of the demon cave, Jia Tian's walked over. A giant black cocoon appeared between heaven and earth, constantly absorbing the surrounding demon chi. Earth Chief, it's your turn. As soon as he said that, Jia Tian's raised his right hand. Suddenly, a strange power spilled out from the crisscrossing runes, and the giant black cocoon began to change. The brilliance flickered, and the demonic power was shocking. Runes spread out and unraveled the cocoon. Within the black cocoon, a pair of ice-cold eyes opened. An instant later, the cocoon shattered and an enchanting and seductive figure walked out. The black armor covering her body could not hide her exquisite figure. The demonic palace's Earth Chieftain appeared in the world. Immediately, demonic energy soared into the sky and shook 1,000 miles around. Earth Chief, the Devil Palace's northern expedition has been obstructed. You should make a move. Jia Tian's looked at the woman in front of him and waved his hand to give her the commander's seal. Understood. The Earth Chief took the commander's seal and responded calmly. His figure flashed and disappeared. At the same time, 10,000 miles to the south of the island of Borneo, the demon army that had suffered heavy losses in the battle stopped to rest. The 10 demon generals had heavy expressions on their faces. They had suffered heavy losses in the battle. What was even more troublesome was that their main general was heavily injured. They were like a group of dragons without a leader and could only choose to retreat. Just as the 10 demon generals were feeling extremely anxious, demonic chi surged in the void as a black armored figure appeared and walked out. Seeing this, the 10 demon generals were shocked. They immediately knelt down and said respectfully, "Greetings, Earthly Chief. Send out the troops." In the void, the Earth Chief did not waste any time. The commander's seal appeared in his hand and he gave the order. Seeing the commander's seal in the former's hand, the 10 demon generals' expressions changed again. They bowed and accepted the order. In the next moment, the tens of thousands of demon army marched toward the north. At the same time, in the 10 halls of hell at the border of the 3 regions, the 10 kings of hell who were unaware of the upheaval in the outside world were each adjusting their breathing in their own halls and preparing for the future battle. In front of the king of hell's hall, Ningchen stood quietly. He looked ahead and was deep in thought. Are you still thinking about the previous battle? Behind him, Nu Chang walked over and asked. Ningchen nodded and said, this time, the demonic lord appeared in the battlefield. We can be sure that the demonic lord has entered the 4th realm. Otherwise, an illusory body would not have such terrifying strength. It's not strange that the demonic lord has a 4th realm cultivation base. This is also within our expectations. However, the demonic lord has not come out of seclusion yet. We still have some time to prepare, Nu Chang said. Ningchen nodded and continued, what I'm most worried about is that the Devil Palace will not let this matter rest. Their next target will be the Devil Palace's most terrifying counterattack. The Devil Palace is in the light, while we are in the dark. There is no need to worry for the time being. However, the Heaven Mending Pavilion and Reverence Moon Clan have appeared in this battle. If the Devil Palace chooses to attack them, it will be troublesome. Nu Chang reminded. Ningchen was silent for a moment before nodding. Senior Reverence Moon has led her people back to the holy ground. She has given me a moon god token. If something happens, I will be the first to know. Compared to the Reverence Moon holy ground in the northwest, the Devil Palace's most likely target is the Heaven Mending Pavilion. I just don't know if the Hong Luan Star Field's allied forces can resist. In the previous battle, Mu Qianshang and the others have suffered great losses. They need time to recover their strength, so it's not suitable for them to fight. Nu Chang said softly. Ningchen nodded his head and sighed softly. The greatest difference between us and the Devil Palace is the number of peak experts they have. Although the Devil Palace has lost 2 protectors, the Moon Weaver and Bai Wangran, the 3 experts from the Seven Sins sect are still completely unharmed. None of them are weaker than Jun Wenin, especially the one from the Sin sect who fought with Baiyu. He is already infinitely close to the 4th level. Don't be impatient. Take it step by step. You have done very well. The current situation is much better than before. The Devil Palace has suffered great losses, so they should rest for a few days. What we need the most now is time. Nu Chang said solemnly. Ning Chen nodded. After thinking for a moment, he said, Nu Chang, I want to make a trip to the Divine Ji Peak. A man has probably gone there. Senior Shinji is A man's adoptive father. Now that he has proven himself, A man must have suffered a great blow. I'm worried. Nu Chang nodded and said, Go. Luotian and I will take care of this place. Nothing will happen. Then I'll have to trouble Nu Chang. Ning Chen said softly. He looked at the Imperial Hall behind him and said, Let's go. Follow me to the Divine Ji Peak. Immediately ran out from the Imperial Hall when she heard this. Her face was filled with joy. A moment later, the 2 figures disappeared and left the 10 halls. 10 days later, a phoenix appeared in the sky above the Divine Ji Peak and spread its wings. On the peak, a beautiful figure dressed in white was kneeling in front of the peak. She was motionless. No one knew how many days she had been kneeling. In front of her, the purple cloud godly sword was stabbed into the ground. The sword's sorrowful cry could be faintly heard. Ah man! The phoenix retracted its wings and a plain-clothed figure walked out. She looked at the beautiful figure in front of the peak and said, Mistress. Ran up from behind and said with tears in her eyes, You're really here. I was so worried. Looking at the girl beside her, a gentle smile appeared on Ah Man's face. She raised her hand and patted the girl's head. She said softly, I'm fine. It's just that foster father needs someone to mourn here, so I can't go back for the time being. Ning Chen walked to the front of the peak and looked at the woman kneeling on the ground. He said with shame, I'm sorry. Ah Man shook her head and smiled. It's not your fault. No one can stop foster father's choice. I can feel foster father's determination. Since he has made such a choice, Ah Man is happy for him. Ning Chen looked at the woman in front of him quietly. After a moment, he sighed in his heart. Ah Man never lied. Her thoughts were not something that ordinary people like them could understand. Perhaps she was really happy for Senior Shinji. Mistress, how long are you going to mourn here? Iner asked. 3 years. Ah Man said softly, Foster father taught me for 100 years. As his daughter, I have to mourn for him for 3 years. 3 years? So long? Looked at the unusually quiet peak behind her. There's nothing here. How are you going to stay here for 3 years? Ah Man smiled. I've already lived here for 100 years. I'm used to it. You have to listen to your master during these 3 years. Once the 3 years of mourning are over, I'll go find you. All right. Pouted. Mistress, you have to go back quickly. Ning Chen is so busy and usually ignores me. All right. A man replied softly. Looked at the man standing quietly beside her. She thought for a moment and said, Ning Chen, I'm going to the mountain to play for a while. Call me when you're about to leave. Ning Chen nodded and replied softly. Got up and gave him an encouraging look. She jogged away, leaving the 2 of them alone. This girl has her own petty thoughts. Ning Chen sat down and said with a smile. It's a good thing that still has a child's heart. Ah Man said softly. You have to protect her. Didn't you work so hard to protect this beautiful thing? I understand. Ning Chen nodded and said, Man, 3 years of time is neither long nor short. You have to take good care of yourself while you're here. Okay, don't worry. Ah Man nodded. I will. You too. Ghost Girl's matter can't be rushed. Take it slow. One day you'll find her. Also, before Ning Chen could speak, Ah Man continued. A few days ago, I sensed the aura of the Devil Palace's Devil Master. He's already entered the 4th realm. This is a whole new realm. You have to be careful. Ning Chen listened and looked at the person beside him. He said softly, "Ah man, it's my fortune to have met you in this life." Ah man was startled at first, but then she revealed a bright smile. Instantly, it was like 100 flowers blooming. It was so bright that people couldn't open their eyes. In front of the mountain, the two of them didn't say anything else. They didn't promise or lie. Because Ji Ming wasn't willing to make promises that he couldn't keep. Even if it was a white lie, it was an intolerable blasphemy to the people around him. After a long time, the white-clothed figure stood up in front of the mountain. She looked at the lingering clouds in front of her and said, "Ah man, I'm leaving. 3 years later, I'll return you a peaceful world." But Ah man smiled sweetly and nodded in response. Ningchen didn't say anything else. He turned around and walked away. Let's go." In the distance, immediately jogged after hearing this. Chapter 935. 10 Halls of the Underworld. After the Battle of Borneo, more than a month had passed. The 10 halls were quiet. All the hall masters were recuperating and preparing for the next battle. Just as the Yama kings were recuperating, an urgent report pierced through the void and flew towards the King Yama Palace. In front of the King Palace, the lady raised her hand to receive the letter. After reading it, her calm expression immediately changed. "Everyone, please come to the King Yama Palace. There is an urgent matter." The lady suppressed the shock in her heart and transmitted her voice. Among the halls, the Yama kings opened their eyes and looked towards the King Yama Palace. They stood up and disappeared in an instant. In front of the King Yama Palace, figures appeared one after another and walked into the palace. "Lady, what's the hurry?" Mu Qianshang looked at the lady in the palace and asked in confusion. "Something has happened." The Demon Palace suddenly sent troops to the Red Phoenix Star region and directly attacked Butian Pavilion. The lady said in a deep voice, "How can this be?" Luo Xingchen was shocked and said, "The Demon Palace has lost 3 of their 4 protectors. Hua Zhongdia has lost her memory and is not good at leading troops. Where did the Demon Palace get a general? It can't be the Demon Palace's saint who is leading the troops." The lady shook her head and said seriously, "An earthly chief has appeared in the Demon Palace. Her strength is unfathomable. The Demon Palace's army is now under her command." "Earthly chief?" Hearing this, Mu Qianshang's expression darkened as he said, "There really isn't an end to this. We've finally gotten rid of 2 protectors and now another Earth Chief has arrived. Just how many more strong practitioners does the Demon Palace have that have yet to show themselves? Now that Ji Ming is not here, it's really troublesome." Luo Xingchen said coldly. Looking at the time, he should be back soon. "But if we rush over now, will it be too late?" Mu Qianshang asked. "The enemy's strength is unknown. Moreover, after the previous lesson, the Demon Palace will definitely be prepared. If we act rashly, I'm afraid we will fall into the saint's trap." The lady said seriously, "The more critical the situation is, the more Ji Ming is not here. It's really worrying." Luo Xingchen said anxiously. "Rumble." At this moment, above the 10 halls, the divine restriction shook and a figure in plain clothes appeared and descended from the sky. "He's back." All of the Yama kings in the palace were elated upon hearing this. After a few breaths, Ningchen brought to the front of King Yama's palace. When he saw the people gathered in the palace, he asked, "What happened?" "The Devil Palace has sent out their troops, and the one leading them is a woman called Di Kue. Right now, she is leading her troops towards the Heaven-Mending Pavilion." The female attendant explained the situation simply. Ningchen had heard of this before, and he frowned slightly. "Earth Chieftain? Did the demonic palace have a new expert?" "Ji Ming, what should we do now?" Luo Xingchen asked. "I'll go take a look myself. You don't have to follow me. There's not enough time." As soon as he finished speaking, Ning Chen's figure flashed. In the next moment, above the 10 palaces, the divine restriction was activated. The phoenix spread its wings and flew toward the starry sky. In the south of the Red Phoenix Star Field, the 10,000 demons had crossed the Borneo continent and were heading north. The leader of the demons, the Demon Palace's earthly chief, was clad in black battle armor. He held a long halberd in his hand and was valiant in battle. Along the way, he had not met a match. Within the Demon Palace's army, the protectors of Yu Yao and Xing Huai were assisting the earthly chief in battle. They were quickly heading north. In just a short month, the Red Phoenix Alliance had not even regained their senses before they were completely scattered by the Demon Palace's torrent. They were defeated again and again. The gap between the strongest experts made this battle without any suspense. The 10,000 demon army was heading north and was about to reach the territory of the Heaven Mending Pavilion. Within the Heaven Mending Pavilion, the experts of the Heaven Mending Pavilion who were retreating again and again had abnormally heavy expressions. The two protectors' faces were also extremely ugly. Facing the Demon Palace's terrifying attack, they were helpless. Pavilion Master, is there still no movement from the underworld? A Heaven Mending Pavilion's Grand Elder looked at the Heaven Mending Pavilion Master in front of him and asked, "I've already sent a letter using the secret technique they left behind, but I haven't received a response yet." The Heaven Mending Pavilion Master said in a deep voice. Pavilion Master really shouldn't have trusted them back then. If we didn't provoke the Demon Palace, we wouldn't be in such a difficult situation right now. Another Heaven Mending Pavilion's Grand Elder spoke with a gloomy expression. With life and death in front of them, the Heaven Mending Pavilion's Grand Elders could not care less about the difference in status. The Heaven Mending Pavilion Master's face became more and more gloomy as he listened to the complaints. After a long time, he coldly shouted, "Enough, what's the rush? Right now, the Heaven Mending Pavilion hasn't fallen yet. Perhaps there will be a turnaround soon." Where is the turnaround? Could it be that we're really counting on those people from the underworld? The Grand Elder who spoke earlier said in a deep voice, or perhaps, counting on that Mahist sect's 9th disciple? Impudent! The Heaven Mending Pavilion Master's face became cold as he angrily said, "What? Counting on this one is not enough." Right at this moment, in the horizon, a phoenix whistled through the sky. Within the burning phoenix flames, a plain-clothed figure descended from the sky. Looking at everyone, he calmly said, "It's you." Seeing the figure that appeared in front of him, the Heaven Mending Pavilion Master's face did not have any joy as he coldly said, "Pavilion Master, is this how you welcome reinforcements?" Ning Chen glanced at the Heaven Mending Pavilion's Grand Elders and smiled. "Everyone, long time no see. I trust you have been well since we last met. Mahist sect's 9th disciple, if you came here just to gloat, then please leave. Otherwise, even if it's just a trace, I will make you pay the most painful price." Bu Tian's left protector stepped forward and said with a cold expression, "Don't worry, I am not that free. I came here because the underworld's monarchs asked me to help everyone." Ning Chen said with a serious expression. The Heaven Mending Pavilion Master narrowed his eyes and said, "Where are those Yama kings from the underworld? Why didn't they come?" "You sent the letter too late." Ning Chen's face revealed a trace of a smile and said, "The underworld is separated by several starfields. They did not have time to act even if they wanted to, so they could only ask me to come first." "You came alone?" the Heaven Mending Pavilion Master asked seriously. Before he finished speaking, from the 9th heaven, a black ray of light broke through the sky and crashed into the ground with a loud bang. In an instant, the entire Heaven Mending Pavilion's territory violently shook. The sky collapsed and the earth fell. Countless cracks crisscrossed, and the ground sank 100 zhang. They came. In front of the Heaven Mending Pavilion's experts, Ning Chen turned his head and looked at the figure that appeared in the sky. His eyes narrowed slightly. It seemed like they came at the right time. Above the 9 heavens, the wind and clouds surged. Amidst the rolling dark clouds, an enchanting and charming figure descended from the sky. She was dressed in exquisite black armor that tightly wrapped around her fair skin. She was like a fairy that walked out of the night, causing people to be unable to take their eyes off her. Ning Chen's gaze looked at the former, and a ray of light flashed past. Was this the Demon Palace's Earth Chief? Judging from his aura, he did not seem as terrifying as that Meng Yu Sex. However, what about his true battle strength? Today, the Heaven Mending Pavilion has changed masters. All of you, only death awaits you. The Earth Chief landed. The Earth could not bear the extreme power and collapsed. The black ray of light that fell previously flew out from the ground. The demon halberd, the legend of Doomsday, once again displayed its peerless edge. Chapter 9:36. The night was dark, and the earth was silent. Suddenly, the devil halberd broke through the sky, and the wind and clouds in the sky changed. The Devil Palace's Earth Chief appeared with endless killing intent. Everyone in the heaven-mending pavilion was shocked. They looked at the newcomer with a heavy expression. The new powerhouse from the Devil Palace was unprecedented. His strength and ability were unknown, and it made people fearful. The appearance of the Earth Chief was followed by two figures behind him. Their unusually powerful auras shook the heavens and the earth. Yu Yao and Xing Han appeared to help the Earth Chief. They challenged the heaven-mending pavilion together. "You've gone too far." The heaven-mending pavilion master's expression was extremely gloomy as he stepped forward. His killing intent surged violently. "Today, we swear to live and die with the heaven-mending pavilion." Left Guardian Qi Xian and Right Guardian Jiang Yun stepped forward as well. They released their true origin and glared at the three powerhouses from the Devil Palace. "You've overestimated yourselves." The Earth Chief stepped forward. Suddenly, an unusually powerful pressure swept over. The three of them felt their hearts sink, and they found it difficult to breathe. At the side, Ning Chen looked at the black-armored woman walking over. His face flashed. It would be difficult for the heaven-mending pavilion to survive today. The ninth disciple of the Mo sect. Behind the Earth Chief, Moon Illumination Zong looked at the silhouette in plain clothes and said indifferently, "Do you still want to interfere with the battle between the Devil Palace and the heaven-mending pavilion?" "I've been asked to do so," Ning Chen said with a smile. "Then your opponent shall be me." Moon Illumination Zong said calmly as he walked out and looked at the person in front of him. Ning Chen's eyes narrowed slightly. He stepped to the side and separated the battlefield. "Looks like my responsibility is to clean up these small fries again." Star Illumination Zong looked at the supreme elders of the heaven-mending pavilion and sneered. His figure flashed as he stepped forward. The three powerhouses of the Devil Palace were about to fight. The atmosphere was unusually heavy. "If you're not going to make a move, then I'll start," the Earth Chief said coldly. He raised the devil halberd in his hand. Instantly, black demonic waves surged and covered the entire battlefield. The heaven-mending pavilion master and the two guardians on his left and right joined forces to block the demonic power. With a loud collision, the mountains collapsed and the earth toppled. The legend of Doomsday revealed its peerless demonic might for the first time. The three of them joined forces, but they all felt the weight of 10,000 pounds pressing down on them. Their legs sank into the ground with a thud. Despite gaining the upper hand with the halberd, the Earth Chief did not stop attacking. The demonic halberd channeled another 30% of its demonic might and pressed down forcefully. The three of them focused their attention and unleashed all of their martial arts to block the demonic power with their palms. Rumble! With an earth-shattering tremor, the demonic halberd swept through the army. The ground beneath the three of them crumbled as the cracks extended for hundreds of miles. They were so deep that they couldn't see the bottom. The powerful halberd was incomparably tyrannical. Although there weren't many transformations, each and every move was like a deep sea, making people unable to block it. With innate divine strength and the support of the heavy halberd, the earthly chieftain was able to block all the attacks by himself. Bu Tian and the other two supreme experts were immediately in danger. On the other side of the battle, Ning Chenxing blocked the moonlight with his sword. While he was fighting the enemy, his divine consciousness was constantly observing the battle in the distance, judging the strength of the Devil Palace's Earth Chief. "You dare to be distracted while fighting with me? Ninth son of Mo Gate, your arrogance is making me see you in a new light." Moon Illumination Zong said coldly. With a flip of his palm, a bright moon appeared above the sea. Amidst the earth-shattering phenomenon, it formed its own pattern above the law. Above the surging devil ocean, a divine moon soared into the sky. A terrifying pressure swept out in all directions. Under the brilliance, it made people feel like their bodies were about to crack. After comprehending his own Tao and peeking into the fourth stage, Moon Illumination Zong displayed a shocking ability for the first time. With a flip of his palm, the divine moon illuminated the sky. With the moonlight on his body, Ning Chen instantly felt the blood in his body churning as though it was about to evaporate from his body. Celestial technique, waxing moons. The Tao technique was shocking. Ning Chen refused to be outdone. He took a step forward and leaped into the sky. The yin and yang energy in his body overflowed as he raised his hand to stabilize the sky. He used Emogate's celestial technique again. A black moon appeared in the sky. From perfection to imperfection. Under the pressure of the powerful law, it forcefully collided with the phenomenon of the bright moon above the sea. When the celestial technique and Tao technique collided, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. The heaven and earth were in chaos. The aftershock surged and instantly shook the battle. In the center of the battle, the two of them took most of the aftershock and retreated a few steps. Their blood was churning rapidly. In the third battle, Star Brilliance Zong's expression changed when he sensed the white-hot battle in the distance. The ninth son of Mo Gate was actually able to fight Moon Illumination to a standstill. This son's potential was truly terrifying. Unwilling to delay any longer, Star Brilliance Zong gathered his energy and his own Tao energy appeared. In an instant, the starlight from the 9 heavens fell. In the dazzling brilliance, the Tao technique appeared and pressed down on the Grand Elders. The 10 Grand Elders' expressions turned solemn. They joined forces and condensed their energy. Raging sea waves blocked the Tao technique. Ugh! When the two attacks collided, the waves dissipated. Amidst a series of muffled groans, the 10 Grand Elders' mouths turned red as they retreated a few steps. Starry sky crossing. After one attack, another followed. The starlight around Star Brilliance Zong illuminated the heavens and the earth. His unshakable ability caused the entire battle to tilt. The 3 battles were in different situations. The Grand Elders all fell into a bitter battle. Blood splattered everywhere and dyed the ground red. Battle cries and shouts were ear-piercing. Outside the heaven-mending territory, tens of thousands of demon army pressed in with irresistible force. The heaven-mending territory was destroyed. It was a foregone conclusion and could no longer be reversed. In the Battle of Polo Luo, the Demon Palace suffered heavy losses. Their reversal shocked the world. Within the heaven-mending territory, Ning Chen sensed the tilting of the battle. He sighed in his heart. The heaven-mending pavilion could not be saved. He did not expect the Demon Palace's counterattack to come so suddenly. With the destruction of the heaven-mending territory, the Red Luan Star region would soon become the Demon Palace's world. Ugh! In the distance, 3 muffled groans suddenly sounded. In front of the Doomsday Legend, the heaven-mending pavilion master and the 2 protectors flew out together. Blood sprayed out from their bodies like rain. 1 against 3, the Demon Palace's Earth Chieftain completely suppressed the 3. His astonishing battle strength shocked everyone. Pavilion Master, leave quickly. The heavy halberd pressed down again. Qi Xian took a step forward and clasped her hands together to block the demonic halberd. Blood continuously flowed out of her mouth as she shouted. The heaven-mending pavilion master's expression was shocked. His face revealed a struggle. After a moment, he no longer hesitated and took a step to leave. Sorry, the Saint Arbiter said that no one from the heaven-mending pavilion will be left alive today. As he spoke, the void swirled and a divine sun appeared between the heaven and earth. An abnormally valiant pressure swept out. The head of the 7 Sins sect, Mingyu, walked out and slapped the heaven-mending pavilion master's back. With a miserable groan, the heaven-mending pavilion master spat out blood from his mouth. His body flew out and smashed into the ground. Pavilion Master. Right Protector Jiang Yun's pupils shrunk as he said in shock. Earth Chieftain, let's end this quickly. Mingyu looked at the woman in the battle and said, That's exactly what I was thinking. The Earth Chieftain nodded. The demonic halberd in his hand fell from the sky with the power to split the sea. Qi Xian raised her vitality to block the demonic halberd again. Only a heaven-shaking sound was heard. The heavy halberd could not block it. In the midst of the splashing blood, The doomsday legend broke through the obstruction and pierced the Earth Chieftain's left shoulder. On the road to the underworld, you all will go together. You will not be lonely. The Earth Chieftain's revolving halberd pierced through the Earth Chieftain's left shoulder. The halberd's left palm condensed demonic energy and slapped the Earth Chieftain's chest. The heavy palm slapped her body and destroyed her heart. Qi Xian's body flew out and smashed into the ground. Qi Xian. Before he could recover, Jiang Yun had just opened his mouth when Ming Yuzong's palm arrived behind him. The unparalleled power destroyed the cultivator's meridians. Blood splashed out and dyed the sky red. Jiang Yun looked at the flames of war in front of him unwillingly and directly fell down. The heaven-mending pavilion master and the left and right protectors had died in battle. On the other side of the battle, the heaven-mending sect's exalted elders were shocked. The starlight that filled the sky passed through their bodies. The heaven-mending sect's exalted elders stiffened and then exploded. In the blink of an eye, the heaven-mending sect's exalted elders had all died in battle. In the only battle left, Ning Chen's expression became serious. He no longer continued to fight. His phoenix origin surged and his phoenix wings opened and closed, wanting to escape. Ninth disciple of Mo Gate, this situation was originally set up by you. How can I let you leave like this? In the distance, Ming Yuzong flipped his left hand. The heaven net rose into the sky and the earth net entered the ground. One golden and one black demonic net sealed the world and trapped the phoenix wings. In the void, Ning Chen's figure stopped. He stood in the air and looked at the two demonic nets in the sky and on the ground. A cold light flashed through his eyes. The Earth Chief, Sun, Moon, and Star Masters stepped forward and each took a side, blocking all paths. Your Saint Priest really thinks highly of me. With such a big lineup, knowing destiny is truly honored. Ning Chen looked at the four and said indifferently, "To you, it's worth it." Ming Yuzong looked at the plain-clothed young man in front of him and said calmly, "Ninth disciple of Mo Gate, I've heard of you for a long time. Let me see if you're really as amazing as the legends say." As soon as he finished speaking, the Earth Chief moved. The demonic chi of the myth of Doomsday shone, and the black demonic halberd actually burned and turned red. Ning Chen clenched his left hand, and the white rainbow came out of its sheath. The extremely soft sword wrapped around the heavy halberd and dispersed the force. After trapping the enemy for a moment, Tai Shi swung his sword and mercilessly took their lives. The Earth Chief's eyes narrowed. He flipped his palm and shook off the blade. The demonic halberd in his hand spun rapidly and broke free from the white rainbow. In the blink of an eye, everyone was impressed. Behind him, the star radiance and moon illumination didn't delay any longer. They flashed past and joined the battle. In a few breaths' time, the three strongest masters of the demonic palace joined forces to suppress knowing destiny. They wanted to get rid of a big threat. In the battle, Ning Chen's footsteps turned. His figure was like an illusion, and he avoided wave after wave of attacks. The two swords in his hands, one hard and one soft, alternated between attack and defense without showing any flaws. Outside the battle, the Dark Universe Master looked at the battle ahead. His terrifying aura circulated, and he was ready to attack at any time. With a thought, the Linglong Celestial Pagoda flew out and floated in the sky. Celestial light shone down to protect him. The two swords in Ning Chen's hands shone brightly, and he used the 10th sword again. The endless sword light rushed into the sky like a tide, and then turned into a raging torrent that broke out in all directions. The Earth Chief, Star Radiance, and Moon Illumination instinctively avoided the sword light. Suddenly, their expressions changed and they looked at the sky. Not good. Before they finished speaking, the sword light crashed into the sky net. In the violent tremor, the sky net flickered and showed signs of instability. Goodbye. With a soft whisper, the phoenix spread its wings and rushed into the sky quickly. At this moment, outside the battle, the Dark Universe Master who hadn't made a move yet moved. The divine sun rose into the sky and blocked the phoenix's path. Shadow of the remnant wind. In an instant, the divine sun caught up with the phoenix. In the sky, a beautiful figure dressed in white appeared. The familiar beautiful face and the familiar sword move slashed down and broke through the sky net. With a boom, the sword light cut through the restraints. The sword momentum didn't stop, and it slashed toward the divine sun below. The Dark Universe Master's expression turned serious. He flipped his palm and blocked the sword light. However, in an instant, the phoenix spread its wings and rushed into the sky, escaping the fatal situation. Chapter 937. Butian territory was a mess after the war. A demonic calamity destroyed Butian and made it history. A cold wind blew and dust flew. It was desolate and quiet, no longer as prosperous as it used to be. The demonic army continued north to attack the Red Lawn sects, adding more glory to the demonic palace. After the war, the earthly leader of the demonic palace became famous and everyone knew about him. At the border of the Red Lawn, Purple Myrtle, and the underworld, two figures descended from the sky and landed on the ground. In each palace, the kings of hell sensed something and looked into the distance. Among the crowd, the strong cultivators from the divine land were shocked when they saw the girl in white beside Ji Ming. Mu Qingxue, junior sister. In King Biancheng's palace, Jian Er recovered from the shock and rushed out of the palace. In front of the King Yanluo's palace, Ning Chen walked over with Mu Qingxue. Jian Er appeared. Seeing him, Mu Qingxue stopped and said softly, "Second senior brother. Junior sister, why are you here? Where have you been all these years?" Seeing the only descendant of his master, Jian Er could not hide his emotions and asked. "It's a long story. Second senior brother, let's go into the palace first," Mu Qingxue said calmly. "Okay." Jian Er nodded and said softly. The three of them entered the palace. In the palace, Yin Er saw the unfamiliar and beautiful figure beside Ning Chen and was slightly stunned. "This girl is Yin. She's my disciple." Ning Chen waved her over and introduced her with a smile. "Mu Qingxue, the successor of the barren city of the divine land. Yeah, you should have heard of him more than once." Hearing this, Yin Er's beautiful eyes were filled with surprise. "Mu Qingxue? Another master's wife? Greetings, master's wife." Er came back to her senses and immediately bowed. Ning Chen was speechless after hearing this. Looking at the girl in front of him, Mu Qingxue's face was still calm, but the gentleness in his eyes was clearly visible. He flipped his right hand and a golden paper appeared. He handed it over. At the side, Ning Chen and Jian Er were shocked when they saw this. Yin Er took the golden paper and was puzzled. "What is this?" "Cheng Shui, this gift is too valuable. This girl has more treasures than anyone else. You don't have to give it to her anymore." Ning Chen stepped forward, took the scroll, and returned it to Yi Zichen. "Give it back to me, Mistress Mu gave it to me." When Yin Er heard this, she immediately snatched it back and hid it behind her back like a little miser. The corner of Mu Qingxue's mouth revealed an undetectable smile as he approved of the girl's behavior. "You only know how to ask for gifts. Do you know what this is?" Ning Chen said helplessly. "I don't know," Yin Er answered confidently. "This is the travel scroll. It is the only cultivation technique in the world that can allow one to cultivate the extreme speed of heaven and earth," Ning Chen explained. When Yin Er heard this, her big eyes lit up and her small hands grabbed even tighter. At this moment, Mu Qianshang and the others appeared in front of the king of Hell's palace. "All right, Jiming. Don't even think about getting back what you gave her." Mu Qianshang walked forward and chuckled, "Mu Qingxue, long time no see." Looking at the familiar figures walking over, Mu Qingxue nodded his head in greeting the friends who had gone through life and death with him. "Jiming, where did you find Miss Mu? Didn't you go to help Butian Pavilion?" Luo Xingchen walked forward and hammered the shoulder of the person in front of him. He said seriously, "Tell me the truth." Looking at his good friend's playful appearance, Ning Chen raised his hand and slapped his arm away. He said, "Butian Pavilion was destroyed and I almost couldn't make it back. Luckily, Qingxue saved me." HM? When everyone heard this, their expressions froze. They stopped joking and became serious. "What happened?" Mu Qianshang asked seriously. Ningchen walked to the conference table and said, Demon Palace, Earth Chief and Sun, Moon and Star, the three sinful sects have all arrived. Bu Tian Pavilion, from the pavilion master to the disciples, all died in battle. When I left, I was trapped by an inescapable net. Luckily, Qingxue saved me in time and I was able to escape unscathed. To be able to put you in such a difficult situation, it seems like Demon Palace had already planned this. Nu Chang said. Ningchen nodded and said, that Saint Arbiter's goal is to get rid of me. Otherwise, there is no need for the Sun, Moon, and Star three sin sects to come here. A Devil Palace earthly chief and a sin sect elder are enough to annihilate the heavily wounded Heaven Mending Pavilion. With Bu Tian Pavilion destroyed, the Red Luan Alliance will not be able to hold on for long. The Red Luan Star region will be hard to protect. Jiming, what's the next step? Have you thought about it? Mu Qianshang said solemnly. When everyone heard this, their expressions turned serious. The destruction of the Red Luan Star region was definitely not good news. It meant that Demon Palace's next choice would be Crepe Myrtle, Sky Mist, Luo Jia, or Spirit Void Star region. Spirit Void Star region had Nether Hall and Ji family, two great sections. They were very powerful and Demon Palace should not provoke them in the short term. The remaining 3-star regions were about the same in strength. However, Luo Jia Star region and Demon Palace's All Heaven Star region were only slightly connected. The possibility of Demon Palace attacking Luo Jia Star region was not high for the time being. Apart from Spirit Void and Luo Jia, Demon Palace's next most likely targets were Crepe Myrtle and Sky Mist Star regions. This was the result they were most unwilling to see because the inner realm was in the Crepe Myrtle Star region. Once the Crepe Myrtle Star region was affected by the flames of war, the secret of the inner realm would not be able to be kept. Jiming, you must think of a way this time. No matter what, the war cannot start in the Crepe Myrtle Star region. Luo Xingchen said solemnly. Let me think about it. Ningchen said. He calmed down and began to think. He knew what his friends were worried about. Although the inner realm had many experts in the past 100 years, they were still far from being able to compete with Demon Palace. Therefore, this war must not affect the inner realm. Time passed little by little. Everyone in the palace sat in their seats and waited quietly. No one said anything to disturb them. Outside the palace, the sky gradually darkened. The white-clothed figure on the main seat was still thinking silently, weighing the pros and cons of each choice. After another 2 hours, the Yama kings stood up one by one and quietly left. They knew very well that this problem was very difficult. However, among them, only Jiming could solve this desperate situation. There was no other choice. After everyone left, only Jiming was left in front of the huge conference table. He sat there silently and meditated without saying a word. Not far away, Mu Qingxue looked at the girl in front of him and asked softly, "Do you have tea?" "Yes." Quickly nodded. She ran to the side and brought over a tea set and a cup of Yunwu tea. She handed it to the person in front of her. Mu Qingxue took it and carefully placed it on the table beside him. Do you know how to make tea?" Mu Qingxue asked softly while making tea. Hearing this, shook her head embarrassedly and said shyly, "No." Mu Qingxue smiled faintly and said, "Learn from me. Your master likes to drink tea, especially when he's thinking." Nodded vigorously and giggled. It turned out that master's wife was not as cold and hard to get along with as the rumors said. Chapter 938. In the cold night, the moonlight was bleak and cold. Outside the King Yama Palace, the moonlight shone. Inside the palace, the lights flickered and reflected a figure in plain clothes. After pondering for a long time, Ningchen didn't say a word in front of the meeting table. Thoughts flashed through his eyes as he thought of a solution. Not long after, Mu Qingxue came with a cup of tea. He poured the tea and placed it in front of Ningchen. Ningchen subconsciously took a sip of the tea. After a while, he was shocked and came back to his senses. He looked at the person in front of him and asked in confusion, "You made the tea?" Mu Qingxue nodded and said, "I learned it from Fan Lingyue." No wonder. Ning Chen's face flashed with relief. This familiar taste was indeed very similar to the tea Fan Lingyue made in the pavilion back then. In terms of tea brewing, Fan Lingyue was the best in the world. In the world, there would always be someone who would leave others in the dust no matter what they did. He knew more clearly than anyone how terrifying Fan Lingyue was. She was someone who even the heavens were jealous of. Since he came to this world, he had only seen this one person. He also hoped that she was the only one. If you can't think of a solution, take a rest and think again. Mu Qingxue poured the tea for Ning Chen again and said calmly, "There is a way, but I need to weigh the pros and cons. This is related to the safety of the world. I can't make a mistake." Ning Chen said softly, "The safety of the world is not something you can bear alone. Just do your best and leave it to fate." Mu Qingxue said calmly, "At least I have to try my best." Ning Chen said softly, "You are still the same as before. You haven't changed at all." Mu Qingxue said lightly. Hearing this, Ning Chen looked at the person beside him and asked in confusion, "Qingxue, do you remember what happened back then?" Mu Qingxue shook his head and said, "What I remember now is what you told me." Hearing this, Ning Chen fell silent. After a while, a smile appeared on his face and he said, "It's good that you can't remember. At that time, I was indeed quite embarrassed." "How embarrassing! How embarrassing!" Not far away, heard this and hurried forward. She asked curiously, "Tell me." "Stay away. My face is too big. It makes me dizzy." Ning Chen raised his hand and pushed away the little face that came close to him. "You're the one with a big face." Pouted. Watching the master and disciple bickering, Mu Qingxue's lips curved into a beautiful arc. It seemed that Ning Chen really liked this child. "Let's not disturb your master for now." Mu Qingxue patted the head of the girl beside him and said, "Mistress Mu, can you tell me what happened back then? How did Ning Chen embarrass himself?" Asked curiously. Mu Qingxue smiled and nodded. "Yes." After the two of them left, Ning Chen shifted his gaze to the tea in front of him. A look of reminiscence flashed across his face. "Fan Lingyue, if you were here, how would you choose in this situation?" Just as the sovereigns of the underworld were worrying about the upcoming devil calamity, the flames of war were raging in the Red Phoenix Star region. The Devil Palace's army was constantly on an expedition, and the earthly chieftain, who had replaced Jun Wenyan as the Devil Army's commander-in-chief, acted even more fiercely. Wherever the flames of war passed, not even a blade of grass would survive. In just a few dozen days, one life star after another was taken down by the Devil Army. Countless lives were lost, and countless lives were lost. In front of the Devil Army, the earthly chief in black armor stood quietly. He looked at the star domain in the distance. The Red Luan had already joined the Devil Palace. Next, it was his turn. At the same time, in the Devil Domain's sacred palace, Jia Tiance looked at the sky in front of him. With a wave of his right hand, chess pieces flew out and disappeared into the sky. At this moment, in the Red Luan, All Heavens, Ziwei, and other star domains, the black and white chess pieces appeared. In an instant, they disappeared into the void. Underworld, King Yama's palace. After thinking for many days, Ning Chen looked at the beautiful figure in white standing quietly in front of the palace. He said, "Qingxue, there's something I need your help with." In front of the palace, Mu Qingxue turned around and nodded. Ning Chen stood up and waved his right hand. A white evil mask appeared and flew to the former. "It'll be much more convenient if you bring it with you." Mu Qingxue took the mask and looked at the face on the evil mask. He said calmly, "Impermanence?" Ning Chen nodded and walked forward step by step. Devil Qi surged and his white clothes turned black. Underworld not only has King Yama, but also impermanence. This position is reserved for you. Ning Chen said softly. In his right hand, the black evil mask appeared again and covered his face. "Let's go." After saying that, the two figures flashed and flew towards the sky. Not long after the two left, black and white chess pieces appeared at the border between the Red Luan and All Heaven's star domains. Their auras flowed and reflected the mysteries of heaven and earth. Demon Domain, inside the sacred palace. Feeling the changes in the heavens in the distance, Jia Tian's eyes flashed. He found it. June went in. Jia Tian's walked to the sacred palace and looked at the 4 palaces in the distance. He said, "Don't you want to avenge Moon Weaver? Now I'll give you the chance." In the palace in the distance, June Wenyan, who was wearing the water cloud battle armor, suddenly opened his eyes and said coldly, "What chance?" Jia Tian said indifferently, "The location of Underworld is basically confirmed. I don't need to remind you of what to do next. I need battle power." June Wenyan said coldly. Jia Tian nodded and flipped his right hand. A stream of light flew towards the palace in the distance. "With this token, the sun, moon, and star sex will help you," Jia Tian said calmly. June Wenyan looked at the Devil Palace's saint token that was flying towards him. He slowly stood up and clenched his right hand. Not far away, the inverted moon on water hummed softly and turned into a stream of light as it flew over. June Wenyan grabbed the Moon Devil Divine weapon and walked out of the palace. On a great planet with life in Red Luan Star Zone, Di Kuei stood in front of the army while the 2 sects followed behind him. After a battle, all resistance forces on the great planet were completely annihilated. "Di Kuei, it's time to report back." Moon Illumination sect looked at the black-armored lady in front of him and reminded him. "There's no hurry." Di Kuei looked at the star zone in the distance and said calmly, "Although Red Luan has been annihilated, there are still star zones like Sky Mist, Crepe Myrtle, and Luojia that have yet to be conquered. It won't be too late for me to report back after I've pacified these star zones." Behind him, Star Illumination sect frowned slightly when he heard that. Just as he was about to speak, a divine sun appeared in the void in front of him. Mine Yu walked out and said indifferently, "Star Illumination, Moon Illumination, the Saint Minister has ordered us to assist June Wenyan in conquering the underworld." When the 2 sects heard that, their expressions turned solemn. They did not say anything and followed behind him. Watching the 3 sects leave, Di Kuei retracted his gaze. His expression was still the same as before without any change. At this moment, a black and a white streak of light flew over rapidly from afar. Their speed was so fast that it was shocking. Di Kuei's strength is extraordinary, and he has the help of the 3 sections. You and I alone can't do anything to him. Why do we have to make this trip? The lady in the black and white streak of light asked. It doesn't matter if we can get rid of Di Kuei or not. The most important thing for this trip is to expose our whereabouts to the Devil Palace and temporarily divert their attention, the man in the black and white streak of light replied. You've worked so hard to establish the underworld. If it's exposed just like that, won't all your efforts go to waste? The lady asked in confusion. The underworld's whereabouts will be exposed sooner or later. Instead of being discovered by the Devil Palace in the future, why don't we take the initiative and let them find us? At least, we can decide what we let the Devil Palace see, the man replied. As the 2 of them conversed, their speed became faster and faster. Soon they disappeared into the night. In front of the Devil Palace's army, Di Kuei, who had been standing quietly for a long time, snapped back to his senses. Just as he was about to turn around and leave, his eyes suddenly focused as he looked into the distance. Who's there? Impermanence of the underworld. As he spoke, 2 figures, one black and one white, descended from the 9 heavens. Powerful auras circulated around them, sharp and threatening. Di Kuei looked at the 2 figures that appeared in front of him, and a cold light flashed in his eyes. It turned out that there were other experts hidden in the underworld. Why are the 2 of you here? Di Kuei looked at the 2 and said lightly. We are here on the orders of the King of Hell to invite Di Kuei to the underworld as a guest, the black-clothed impermanence said calmly. As the saying goes, ghosts take souls and impermanences take lives. I can't accept the invitation of the black and white impermanence of the underworld. Di Kuei sneered. We can't go against the orders of the King of Hell. Please don't make things difficult for us, the black-clothed impermanence replied coldly. What if I insist on not going? Di Kuei's face also turned cold. Then we can only offend you. After speaking, the black-clothed impermanence stepped forward. With a clench of his right hand, the sickly king's divine sword appeared. In an instant, black flames spread out, burning the world. If you use force, you will regret it. Di Kuei snorted and waved his delicate hand. In the surging demonic chi, the legend of the end of the world appeared again. The demonic halberd fell, and with a loud bang, the sky was filled with dust. If you want to fight, then let's fight. Behind the black-clothed impermanence, the white-clothed impermanence clenched her delicate hand. In the white brilliance, a sword as thin as a cicada's wing appeared. In an instant, she and the sword disappeared at the same time. The extreme speed made it difficult for people to see clearly. Di Kuei's pupils shrank, and he dodged subconsciously. Cheng Ying broke through the sky, like a shadow following the body. The white-clothed impermanence's figure was like an illusion, extremely fast, and the cold sword, each sword faster than the last. Your speed is not bad, no wonder you are so confident. Di Kuei's halberd blocked wave after wave of attacks, and he said coldly, "It's too early to be surprised." Before the flowers fell, the black-clothed impermanence also moved outside the battle. The sickly king flashed by, and his murderous intent was deadly. Just as the underworld's black and white impermanence were fighting Di Kuei, 4 figures flashed over from the intersection of the 3 regions of red luan, all heaven, and purple myrtle. Looking at the endless starry sky before them, they stopped in their tracks. The leader of the 4, Jun Wenyan, said, "The place that the Saint Arbiter mentioned is here. The underworld should not be far away." Xing Huizong took a step forward and released his divine consciousness, probing the surrounding heaven and earth with all his might. After a long time, Xing Huizong withdrew his divine consciousness and said solemnly, "There's nothing here. Did the Saint Arbiter calculate wrongly?" Moon Illumination Zong shook his head and said, "The Saint Arbiter can't be wrong. There must be some restriction or formation that blocked our divine consciousness." In the underworld, in the imperial palace of Bian City, which had always been in charge of guarding the 10 palaces, Jian Er sensed something and flashed out of the imperial palace. Separated by the divine restriction, Jian Er looked at the distant starry sky, and his eyes darkened. The people from the Devil Palace actually found this place so quickly, and it was much earlier than planned. Could it be that the Saint Arbiter from the Devil Palace had already calculated their whereabouts? Chapter 939. In the Red Phoenix star field, on a life star destroyed by the flames of war, the black and white impermanents came for their lives. In the battle, the Earth Chief held the halberd in his hand and resisted the impermanence's killing intent. The Ill King and Doomsday clashed, and terrifying shockwaves shook, destroying everything around them. In the dust, the white impermanence flashed, and the extremely fast sword was merciless. Fast, 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 the sword came from the underworld. The 2 stunning swords worked together to suppress the Demon Palace's Earth Chief. When the 2 experts worked together, their battle prowess was astonishing. In the tremors, the dust around the 3 of them surged. The sword and halberd clashed, and cold stars filled the eyes. Demonic waves and black flames shook, rumbling through the starry sky. "Ha!" With a deep shout, the Earth Chief's figure moved, waving his heavy halberd. He fought 1 against 2, showing his astonishing battle prowess. Ill King's 3-sun sword. 3 suns appeared, and black flames surged. The black impermanence waved his sword and fought the Demon Palace's Earth Chief. Frightening deity and ghost sigh. The black suns fell, and the Earth Chief's expression turned serious. He immediately broke through the air, splitting the sky. With a boom, the extreme powers clashed. The 2 of them retreated several steps at the same time, and there was no clear winner. At this moment, the white impermanence's sword arrived, aiming for the Earth Chief's throat. Seeing this, the Earth Chief leaned back, dodging the sword light. He turned his halberd and slashed at the white impermanence in front of him. The halberd sank, and the sword light became faster. The white impermanence moved, and he retreated hundreds of feet away. The battle was in a stalemate. Unknowingly, 100 moves had passed. The black impermanence waved his sword to shake off the battle, and his expression turned serious. Why haven't the demon palace and the other two sects appeared yet? Thoughts flashed through his mind. The black impermanence's sword split the 100 suns, and the black flames burned the sky and boiled the sea, drowning the world. The black suns fell from the sky, and their power was shocking. The abnormally powerful destructive power scorched the land within 1,000 miles. Retreat! The black impermanence sent a voice transmission, and his figure flashed, retreating from the battle. On the other side, the white impermanence's eyes narrowed, but out of trust in the former, he retreated without hesitation. In the battle, the Earth Chief blocked the black impermanence's halberd in the burning black flames, and retreated again and again. With a rumble, the mythical doomsday slashed apart the 100 suns. The earthly chief looked at the horizon with a heavy expression. In the distance, a woman's voice could be heard from the two streams of light, one black and one white. What happened? There's a change in the plan. The 3 sinners from the Devil Palace did not show up. The situation doesn't seem right. We have to hurry back as soon as possible, the man replied. Are you saying that something has happened in the underworld? The woman asked. That's possible. The saint of the Devil Palace isn't an ordinary person. Perhaps he really did discover the traces of the underworld before us, the man replied. As the two of them chatted, outside the divine restriction of the underworld, Jun Wenin, Devil Palace, and the other 2 sects joined forces and spread out their divine senses to search for the underworld. In front of the 10 halls of the netherworld, the kings of hell walked out one by one. They looked at the man in front of King Bianqing's hall and asked, Is knowing destiny not back yet? Sword 2 shook his head. He looked at the 4 people in the distance and said, Get ready to fight. With the divine seal of the underworld, can they really find this place? In front of King Qingguang's hall, Luo Xingchen asked. Although the divine seal of the underworld is strong, it is not a complete divine seal. As long as it is not complete, there will be flaws. Jun Wenian and the 3 sinners are not ordinary experts. They might really be able to find it, Mu Qianshang said in front of King Song's hall. In the starry sky, Jun Wenian, Sun Moon, and Star stood in one direction. They activated their techniques and worked together to activate the divine seal. In an instant, demonic qi surged for 10,000 miles, shaking the heavens and earth. Rumble! With a huge tremor, the demonic qi destroyed a meteorite. Instantly, talismans were destroyed and repaired by themselves, repairing the divine seal. The situation changed in an instant. 10,000 li away, the expressions of the 4 supreme powerhouses of the Devil Palace froze. They sensed the fluctuations in the distance, and their gazes all shifted over. Found it. Jun Wenin waved his right hand, and the moon reversal appeared in his hand. Break it. The sun, moon, star, and 3 sinners stepped forward and said calmly. The 4 of them flew over at the same time and stopped 10,000 miles away. 9 revolutions mysterious art. The moon reversal spun as Jun Wendian activated his true essence. In an instant, a shocking sword light soared into the sky, covering 10,000 feet. It was dazzling. Stars crossing. Behind him, sun, moon, star, and star used their ultimate techniques. The divine sun, devil moon, and star splendor moved, assisting the Devil Palace's #1 guardian. In front of the underworld's 10 halls, the Yama kings raised their hands and put on their evil face masks. Their figures flashed and rushed into the sky. 10 figures gathered their true essence and activated their techniques, working together to protect the divine seal. With a loud rumble, the strongest experts from the underworld and the Devil Palace clashed. The divine seal formed by thousands of meteorites shook violently. The stars sank and the sky fell. In the sky above the 10 halls, the 10 strongest experts from the underworld groaned. Their true essence surged violently. Outside the divine seal, Jun Wendian, sun, moon, and star splendor suffered a backlash. Their true essence surged and they were forced to retreat several steps. It is indeed here, Jun Wendian said in a deep voice as he steadied himself and looked ahead. Again. Xing Splendor Sect said, no matter how strong the array is, it has a limit. We just need to attack continuously. This array won't be able to last for long. Ming Yuzong looked at the meteorites floating around and said, "This array seems to be formed by the stars. It won't be easy to break it." "It doesn't matter. As long as it has a form, the moon reversal is the biggest nemesis," Jun Wendian said coldly. The moon demon divine weapon in his hand reappeared. Amidst the heavy devil essence, the divine sword slashed through the air and landed on the stars. With a loud rumble, hundreds of stars fell rapidly and shifted their positions. The world-shocking divine weapon frightened the Brahma ghosts. The meteorites couldn't be blocked, and the divine seal showed a flaw. Behind them, the Sun, Moon, and Star Splendor sect worked together again. Heavy devil essence swept out in all directions. The three of them, who were almost invincible under the fourth level, used their full strength to break the divine seal again. With a loud rumble, figures inside and outside the divine seal groaned at the same time. The corners of their mouths turned red. After a series of collisions, the divine seal of hell shook violently and showed signs of instability. At this moment, in the distance, two figures, one black and one white, passed by quickly. They were 10,000 miles away, but when they felt the fluctuations in the distance, they sped up and rushed forward. 10,000 miles away, the first guardian of the Devil Palace and the Three Sins sect worked together and broke the divine seal again and again. The fluctuations became more and more shocking. Sickly King's 100 Sons soared. Just as the divine seal was about to open, black flames suddenly spread out. 100 suns roared in the sky and intertwined. Seeing this, Jun Wendian and the Three Sins sect retreated quickly, avoiding the destructive black suns. "It's you again." Seeing the newcomers, Jun Wendian's expression turned cold. "Everyone, you've come from afar. Welcome." The black-clothed Wu Chang said coldly. He looked at the four people in front of him and said, "Please excuse me for a moment. I'll be back soon." As soon as he finished speaking, the black-clothed Wu Chang's figure entered the divine seal behind them and disappeared instantly. The four people focused and stepped forward. Layers of sword light broke through the sky. Chapter 940. The myriad heavens, red Luan, and purple myrtle were the borders of the three realms. The Devil Palace's three sects and the First Enforcer had joined forces to search for the foundation of the underworld. At the crucial moment, the black and white deities rushed back to block the attacks. Before the divine restriction, the black-robed figure entered it and instantly disappeared. Within the divine restriction, the black-robed figure appeared. He looked at the Yama kings in front of him and said, "Female Supreme, Jin Air, Ai Ran, Qing Ing, stay behind to protect the divine restriction. The rest of you, come with me." Everyone obeyed. Luo Xingchen, Luo Xin, Mu Qianshang, Qianxia, and Yixuan Miao flashed out of the divine restriction. Under the impermanence mask, Ning Chen activated the Phoenix demon ability in his body. Instantly, he turned into two and appeared separately. The black-clothed impermanence and the red-clothed Yama took a step forward and left the divine restriction. Outside the divine restriction, Jun Wendian and the three sects looked at the Yama kings walking out from the divine restriction, and their expressions stiffened. Behind the 5 Yama kings were the Anitya Hellguards and the Yama kings. "You're all truly capable to be able to locate the location of hell so quickly." In front of the 5 Yama kings, the red-clothed Yama king looked at the 4 people in front of him and said coldly, "What's the point of hiding? Hell's destruction is a foregone conclusion today. Nobody can save you." Among the 3 sects, the Starlight sect looked at the Yama kings in front of them and said coldly, "Let's see if you can do it." The red-robed Yama waved his hands. Amidst the blood-colored light, his astral souls manifested as cold sword chi gushed forth, suppressing Qin Wenyin. "Hand this person over." Jun Wenyin took a step forward and clenched his fist, causing the moon and water to spin rapidly. Boundless devil chi surged out, revealing his terrifying cultivation base. In order to avenge the death of the Moon Weaver girl, Jun Wendian changed his usual indifference. With the Moon Demon divine weapon in hand, his killing intent was fully revealed. At the side, The white-clothed impermanence was just about to step forward to help when the black-clothed impermanence stretched out a hand to stop him. Your opponent is not him. After he finished speaking, the black-clothed Wu Chang looked at the leader of the three sects, the Dark Universe sect. His eyes were as deep as an abyss as he said coldly, "This person is our target." White impermanence looked over and nodded after a while. "If you want revenge, then come with me," the red-robed King Yama said in an indifferent voice before taking a step forward and flying into the distance. Jun Wentian's eyes turned cold. With a flicker of his body, he followed after Qin Wenin. On the other side, the black and white impermanence walked up and faced the head of the three sections. The atmosphere was tense, and a great battle was about to break out. Luo Shun blocked the Moon Illumination sect while Luo Shun assisted Luo Xingqin. Star Mark drew his bow and a seven-colored brilliance illuminated the world. In the final battle, Mu Qianshang and Yi Xianmiao's dual swords joined hands to fight against Xinghui. Qi Yanxia condensed her qi and the might of the extreme emperor heavenly scripture reappeared. Boundless purple qi assisted the dual swords. As soon as the battle began, it reached its peak. The Sun sect, Moon sect, and Star sect displayed their peerless prowess. With every move they made, earth-shattering phenomena appeared. Their supreme Taoist arts suppressed the Yama kings. In the distance, the red-robed Yama was facing off against the #1 protector of the Devil Palace. His astral soul and inverted aquaselenic moon clashed unceasingly. This was sword art, sword chi, and sword intent. The Yama king judged one's life and death. Frost danced on the astral soul sword that shone with a bloody light. The coldest sword light moved rhythmically in the snow. The peerless foundation, the only sword, was undoubtedly displayed. Jun Wentian's heart was filled with endless killing intent. However, he was unusually calm when he attacked. With the divine weapon in his hand, the power of the 9 revolutions' mysterious technique multiplied. Devil Chi surged and the battle entered its climax. 9 Heavens' star-plucking hand. The two swords crossed. The red-robed Yama's left hand sank and the Qilint's ultimate skill appeared again. Jun Wenin leaned to the side and dodged the powerful palm. He clenched his left hand into a fist and struck back forcefully. With a rumble, the force of the fist brushed past his shoulder. In the distance, a meteorite shattered. Gravel fell like rain and scattered in all directions. In the peak battle, the killing intent was shocking. The palms crossed and the swords were majestic. 2 strong limbs connected. Every punch hit the flesh. 9 revolutions' mysterious technique, Ghost Weep. The devil technique was activated. Devil waves surged on his fists. Blood splattered as the heavy punch landed. The red-robed Yama snorted. The sword in his hand slashed across. The sharp sword chi cut through the armor, bringing out a dazzling scarlet waterfall. 1-on-1. There were no schemes or schemes. Only the purest martial arts. Only death would stop. Yama King judged the third watch, Avicii Heaven Wails. The ultimate martial art, Hell on the sword appeared. The red-robed Yama gathered his energy and pushed his martial arts to the peak. Suddenly, red light spread and a bloody sword soared into the sky. Jun Wentian's expression turned serious. Devil Chi surged around his body. The 9 revolutions' mysterious technique rose to the peak. The brilliance of the divine weapon illuminated the world. Heaven and earth were turned upside down. Stars rose and clouds fell. The extreme vision was shocking. The 2 moves collided. The Yama King descended and the devil technique split open the sky. Ugh! With a snort, the 2 swords splattered. Under the extreme power, the 2 figures each took a few steps back. Blood gushed out of their sword-wielding hands. Just as the 2 peak experts of the world were clashing, the other 3 battles were getting more and more intense. Yama, Wuchang, and the 3 sections. The situation was constantly changing. No one dared to be careless. In the most intense battle, Mingyu stood in the divine sun, attacking and defending as one. His terrifying cultivation was fully displayed. Facing the combined attack of the black and white Wuchang, he was not at a disadvantage. Remnant wind fleeting shadow. The Qing Ying sword rang. The white Wuchang passed by quickly. The extremely fast sword disappeared in an instant. Channeling his martial arts, the Ching-Ing sword became more transparent. The sword that was as thin as a cicada's wing was almost invisible under the extreme speed. In the divine sun, Ming-Yu Zong's eyes narrowed. He turned his palm and gathered his energy. Qi surged around his body and blocked the sword. The white wuchang did not retreat. The Ching-Ing sword in his hands spun rapidly. The sharp sword broke through the divine sun's obstruction. The sword entered 3 inches and approached the heart. The fast sword kept moving forward. It wanted to break the undefeated legend of the 3 sects and restore the glory of the underworld. In an instant, the black wuchang's figure arrived. The sickly king's divine sword pierced the divine sun. Black flames burned the sky. Back off. The sword entered a little. Ming-Yu Zong's eyes were filled with killing intent. He raised his palms and counterattacked. The black and white wuchang turned their palms to block. With a bang, they both retreated. After retreating 10 zhang, the white wuchang stepped on the ground and used the momentum to leap forward. His sword intent rose to the extreme. In an instant, the heaven and earth sank. Endless sword light gathered from all directions. 10,000 swords formed. Huge sword wings appeared behind the white wuchang. In the next moment, the sword wings shook and the white wuchang disappeared. With an even faster speed, it surpassed the limits of heaven and earth. Man and sword became one. Before the divine sun could recover, the sword pierced through the gap. With a groan, Ming-Yu Zong's eyes were filled with killing intent. He raised his palm and a scorching current rushed past. With the danger looming, the black wuchang's figure arrived. The sickly king met him. Black flames burned the world and blocked the current of the divine sun. Blood splattered and dyed the mask red. The black wuchang did not retreat half a step. He increased his martial arts and blocked the demonic attack. His martial arts and foundation collided head-on. The black wuchang's injuries continued to accumulate. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Seeing the black wuchang fight for an opportunity, the white wuchang's eyes narrowed. He did not dare to hesitate. The huge sword wings behind him shook again. With a clear shout, he pushed his martial arts to the limit. Shadow-bearing rhythm entered another 30%. Heaven wasteland prohibition. For the first time in hundreds of years, he experienced the feeling of being injured again. The killing intent in Ming-Yu Zong's eyes became more and more intense. He raised his palms. Suddenly, a vigorous primordial force gathered. The power surpassed the limits of heaven and earth. It was infinitely close to the legendary fourth realm. The supreme pressure shocked everyone. As the killing intent approached, the black and white wuchang's expressions darkened. They stepped forward and quickly retreated. However, heaven wasteland prohibitions sealed the surrounding heaven and earth. It was difficult to move quickly. As the danger approached, the black wuchang immediately blocked in front. He raised his palm and the Ling Long celestial pagoda flew out. It shone brightly and protected the two of them. As the prohibition descended, the terrifying power collided with the Ling Long celestial pagoda. In an earth-shattering collision, the Ling Long celestial pagoda's brilliance dissipated. The aftershock pushed the two of them back another 10 feet. Due to his identity, he could not fully display his martial arts. The black wuchang looked at the red llama in the distance. His eyes flashed. In the distance, the red llama felt the demonic body's gaze. He hesitated for a moment and nodded. After receiving the response, the black wuchang shouted in the battle. The demonic aura that had been suppressed for a long time suddenly erupted. Suddenly, the meteorites in a radius of 10,000 miles shook violently. They could not bear the extreme demonic power. On the opposite side, Ming-Yu Zong's eyes flashed. Demonic qi. The black wuchang of the underworld was actually a demon? Demonic technique, heaven's tear. The black wuchang released his martial arts and gathered all his martial arts. The black wuchang used heaven's tear again. Suddenly, the power of resentment soared into the sky and converged with the immortal killing qi, turning the surrounding 1,000 miles into a gloomy hell. I didn't expect you to be hiding such a powerful force. Feeling the pressure coming from all directions, Ming-Yu Zong's eyes turned solemn. His demonic aura surged, and the divine sun around him shone brighter to resist the power of resentment. After a moment, the black wuchang moved. Demonic waves rolled, and black flames surged. Unparalleled demonic power slashed down with 10,000 layers of flames. The ability of the sick king shocked the world. The divine sword slashed down, and the sharpness of the immortal killing chi was unparalleled. The divine sun could not block it, and it crumbled inch by inch. Ming Yuzong raised his palm, and hot air surged to block the divine sword. The two demonic auras collided, and the shockwaves spread out. The battle in all directions was affected and retreated. So, the underworld still has such a master hidden in it. In the distant battle, the sword and palm clashed continuously. Jun Wenin sensed the change in the battle on the other side and said coldly, "There are many things that you don't know. Is there anything strange?" The red Yama raised his palm and blocked the divine weapon with one palm. The moment his figure fell, he stomped his foot and stopped falling. No matter how much you hide, you won't be able to change the outcome of your defeat. 9 revolutions mysterious art, 9 changes of turbid heaven. With a shout, the 9 revolutions mysterious art appeared again. The divine weapon in Jun Wentian's hand changed shape, and 3 sharp points and 2 blades appeared in the world. The sudden change shocked everyone. The red Yama couldn't dodge in time, and the divine weapon pierced his left shoulder, causing blood to spurt out. With a groan, the red Yama took a step and quickly retreated. His body overflowed with cold air and sealed the wound. Dance of butterflies, heavenly king. At this moment, the void behind him suddenly twisted. A water sleeve extended out and wrapped around the red Yama's body. The blood-haired woman in blue walked out of the void. Her eyes were cold and emotionless. The flower burial tear in her hand trembled as if she was crying. Chapter 941. At the border of the 3 regions, the underworld was in a dangerous situation. The 4 strongest experts of the Demon Palace were pressuring the underworld. They were infinitely close to the 4th level, and their combat power was extremely strong. The Yama Kings of the underworld were in a difficult battle. At the crucial moment of the battle, the demonic butterfly appeared again, trapping the Yama King with her water sleeves. The situation was critical. Seeing that he was being attacked from both sides, the red-clothed Yama let out a deep roar. His body was surrounded by blood mist, and a strange divine weapon that had changed its shape flew out from his body. The moment he held it, blood-red patterns spread out from the sword hilt and pierced into his arm. The divine weapon was a bloodline symbiotic. After being nourished by the undying divine tree for 10 years, the cracks on the sword gradually healed, and its shape also changed greatly. Compared to the past, the sword body was deeper, and blood-red patterns could be vaguely seen. The divine weapon with a majestic aura appeared once again. Ha! With a roar, the sword pressure swept out. The water sleeves that were trapping the Yama King in red instantly shattered, turning into a rain of cloth that scattered with the wind. The knowing destiny sword appeared, and heaven and earth sank together. The divine weapon resonated with one another, and in order to defy the underworld's crisis, it went through life and death together again. No matter how much you struggle, you won't be able to change your fate. 9 revolutions mysterious art, 8 dragons defying martial arts. The divine weapon showed its might, and the 3 pointed blades danced in the wind. Jun Wenin activated his demonic essence, and 8 dragons flew out from his body, breaking through space. In order to take revenge for the Moon Weaver, Jun Wenin abandoned his martial artist's heart and turned into a vengeful demon. Demonic waves rolled on the 3 pointed blades, and the 8 dragons coiled between heaven and earth. Yama King's judgment, doomsday heavenly punishment. The 4 origins were activated at the same time, and the Yama King in red robes used the Yama King's ultimate skill. Water, fire, wind, and lightning appeared in the sky, and thunder and fire descended. The terrifying scene of doomsday appeared again. The 2 ultimate martial arts clashed, and the sky was instantly overturned. The 2 groaned at the same time, and their bodies were dyed red again. Butterfly dance, Yama King. Behind them, demonic butterflies' demonic energy surged, and a black butterfly danced. Behind her, huge butterfly wings spread open, and the flower burial sword slashed down, splitting the starry sky. In front, the Yama king in red robes felt it. He turned around and waved his sword to block the sword light. With a loud thump, Yama was forced back another 3 steps. Chapter 942. At the border of the 3 regions, the underworld was in a battle of life and death. The appearance of the demon palace's heaven and earth kings added another variable to the battle. The 4 Yama kings faced the enemy. Xiazi and Ai Ran faced the heaven and earth kings. The battle started again. In front of the divine restriction, Sword 2 held his sword. Half of the broken sword shone brightly. Heaven and earth sensed it. Thousands of swords gathered, and the broken sword was renewed. There are so many sword supremes in the underworld. Your identities have piqued my interest. Jietians looked at the white-robed Yama in front of the divine restriction and said calmly, Lord Saint Arbiter, you have mobilized so many people to come here. We apologize for not going out to meet you. Sword 2 took 2 steps forward and said calmly. Jietians smiled faintly. He looked at the battle and said, The 10 kings of hell and the black and white impermanents are all here. I wonder when the Lord of the underworld will show himself? My Lord has something important to do. It's inconvenient for him to show himself. Please forgive me, Lord Saint, Sword 2 said calmly. I see. Jietians responded softly. He smiled coldly and said, However, I still want to meet the Yama king of your sect. Please make it convenient. Sorry, I can't today. Please forgive me, Sword 2 said calmly. That's a pity. Jietians' eyes gradually turned cold. He stepped forward and said, Since you don't want to give way, I can only force my way in. In front of the divine restriction, Sword 2's expression darkened. His sword intent surged like rain, crisscrossing and spreading in all directions. Please stay here. Don't leave, Sword 2 instructed. His figure flashed and he turned into a sword and swept forward. Jietians raised his hand. Black and white chess pieces flew out and turned into swords. 2 chess swords, 1 black and 1 white, appeared. The moment he held them in his hands, the world around him suddenly sank. Heaven's secrets were disturbed and the wind and clouds surged. With a clang, the black chess piece blocked the sword. White light flashed and the white-robed Yama appeared. He pointed his left hand and sword chi broke through the air. Jietians' expression didn't change. He waved the white chess piece in his left hand and blocked the former sword. They exchanged several moves. Each move was dangerous and strange. Sword 2's eyes narrowed. His expression became more and more solemn. After 10 moves, Sword 2 waved his sword and shook off the battle. He looked at the former with a dark look in his eyes. His technique had been completely replicated. Did you notice? Jietians said faintly, How are you going to solve 2 versions of yourself? As soon as he finished speaking, the sword light flashed. Jietians moved and waved the white flag. It was the exact same move as before, and he responded strongly. Sword 2 swung his sword to block the attack, only to see black chess sword edge slashing towards him again. The 2 swords moved with 2 moves, as if it was 2 against 1, making it impossible to guard against. After more than a dozen exchanges, Sword 2 gradually fell into a disadvantageous position against the black and white Go swords that were working together to kill him. Strange martial arts appeared for the first time in the world. The Saint of the Demonic Palace displayed the ability of mirror shooting, giving the enemy a taste of their own medicine. His 2 swords crisscrossed, and killing intent filled the sky. Just as the situation on this side of the battlefield was becoming clearer and clearer, in the other 2 battlefields, the Heaven and Earth Kings also displayed their most terrifying combat prowess. As they moved, the world shook, unable to withstand the Heaven and Earth Kings' shocking cultivation base. In the battle, facing the terrifying cultivation of the Heaven and Earth Chiefs, the bodies of the 2 kings were already dyed red. However, at the moment of life and death, neither of them took half a step back. The netherworld will definitely be destroyed today. In the battle in the distance, Jun Wendian said coldly. The divine weapon in his hand shone brilliantly, overturning the world and suppressing the former sword. On the other side, the butterfly in the flower waved the flower burial tears. Her knife technique was the only one in the world. The figure of the red-clothed Yama kept moving, and his two swords fought against two heroes. His eyes swept across the dangerous battlefields, and his expression became more and more serious. In front of the divine restriction, Jia Tian's white go sword edge pierced through the white-clothed Yama's left shoulder, bringing out a dazzling waterfall of blood. Back off. Black chest swung the sword edge, and the majestic vital essence vibrated. With a bang, it shook the swordsman in front of him away. Jia Tian stepped forward and looked at the divine restriction in front of him. The black and white go swords shone brilliantly, and the swords slashed down from the sky. Seeing that the divine restriction was about to be broken, Lu Fei moved and blocked the sword light. Her slender hand condensed vital essence, sealing the world. Boom! The martial arts of the heavenly book, mirror shooting, were in a stalemate for a moment. The absolute gap between their cultivation bases was gradually revealed. The world was opened, and the sword light broke through the sky. You are all bad people. At this moment, the divine restriction shook, and a slender figure walked out. She was wearing the small mask that her master had given her, and the anger in her eyes could not be concealed. She raised her hand and pulled out the golden hairpin that bound her hair, waving it forward. At this moment, a shocking scene occurred. The golden hairpin carved with dragons and phoenixes shone brilliantly. Wherever the golden hairpin passed, the starry sky split open and spread forward rapidly. Shi Wang hairpin. Jia Tian saw this, and his expression changed. His figure flashed, avoiding the celestial weapon's sharp edge. So this item has already been obtained by the netherworld. Jia Tian's eyes flashed coldly. He took a step in the air, and his figure turned back, avoiding the Milky Way and swept forward. In the distance, the red-clothed Yama's expression changed drastically. He could not care less about the sharp edge on his body. He took a step and hurriedly swept forward. The sword light flashed, bringing out a waterfall of blood. In the blood, the red-clothed figure disappeared and rushed to the divine restriction. The black chess piece's sword light flashed past, piercing toward the person in front. Under the mask, Iner's eyes shook. She wanted to dodge, but she could not. At this critical moment, the red-clothed Yama's figure flashed past, and he raised his hand to grab the black chess piece's blade. He allowed the blood to flow, but he was not willing to let go. Who allowed you to come out? Go back. The red-clothed Yama shouted angrily. Under the mask, Iner's body shook, and tears appeared in her big eyes. She said, I want to help you. As she spoke, June Wenin and Demonic Butterfly had arrived in the distance. With the three strong cultivators in front, the situation was even more critical. The red-clothed Yama waved his sword and pushed the demonic palace's saint away. He pulled the girl beside him behind him, and he looked at the three strong cultivators of the demonic palace in front of him. Blood kept dripping from his hand that was holding the sword. Behind him, his eyes were filled with tears, but she stubbornly refused to go back. She could see that the netherworld was in danger. Although Ning Chen was powerful, with so many strong cultivators from the demonic palace, how long could he hold them off? The battle was in danger. The red-clothed Yama looked at the various battles and clenched his fists. He could not hesitate any longer, or the battle would be irreversible. However, if he chose to do so, his identity would be completely exposed, and the arrangements that he had made all along would be disrupted. The situation was critical, and there was no time to think. Ning Chen raised his hand and reached for the Yama evil mask on his face. Just as he was about to take off the mask, the cry of a phoenix resounded through the universe. A sword light broke through the haze and swept over quickly. Sorry, I'm late. As the voice fell, many figures appeared in the void. In the lead, Lin Yuzhen, who was wearing a handsome king's robe, looked at the Yama kings who were fighting hard and said, Prince Qi, Lin Yuzhen, and Jia Tian looked over and saw the strong cultivators that appeared. His eyes narrowed and he said, Ji family's Saint Lord, Yuechu. Saint Lord, we greet you. Ji Wechu took 2 steps forward and smiled. "Everyone, please have a seat," the red-clothed Yama said. "Many thanks." Everyone expressed their thanks and took their seats according to their status. Opposite him, the 10 Yama kings sat in order. Their faces were covered with evil masks, concealing their original appearances. Hell is so different from what I'd imagined it to be. I've learned something new. The leader of the Venerables, the Ji family's sacred leader, looked at the 10 kings of hell in front of him and smiled. What does the Holy Lord imagine the underworld to be like? The leader of the 10 kings of hell, the red-clothed king of hell, said. The appearance of hell. Ji Wechu said calmly. Sacred Master must be joking. The red-clothed Yama smiled faintly and said, Men, serve tea to our esteemed guests. As soon as she finished speaking, a slender and graceful figure walked into the hall with large strides, and then she served tea to everyone. Who would have thought that even a girl from the underworld would be at the treading immortal realm? Among the supreme elders of the Ji family, one of them sighed and said, This is my disciple. She hasn't been practicing her martial arts properly. She has embarrassed herself in front of everyone. The leader of the Yama kings, the red-clothed king of hell, replied. Under the mask, heard the former's evaluation and almost couldn't help but pour the tea in her hand on his face. She pouted secretly and obediently served the tea before retreating. Ji Ming, were you the one who arranged for the Ji family and Beiqi's reinforcements? Beside the red-clothed king of hell, a king of hell in a black and white cloak asked through telepathy. The red-clothed king of hell nodded. Before I planned to expose the location of the underworld, I asked Prince Qi to go back and ask for reinforcements just in case. However, I didn't expect that the Demon Palace would find the whereabouts of the underworld first, much earlier than the original plan. As a result, Prince Qi and the Ji family's reinforcements couldn't arrive in time and everyone suffered heavy injuries. This time, my plan went wrong. I'm sorry. It's not your fault. Under the Yama mask, Mu Qianshang shook his head. No one can predict everything. We have already been very careful. For the Demon Palace's sage to be able to discover this place, it can only mean that this person still has methods that we do not know of. Fortunately, you arranged a backup plan, so the underworld did not suffer too many losses. Alright, where is Mu Qingxue? I've arranged for her and the phoenix body to do something, the red-robed Yama replied via voice transmission. While the two of them were chatting, 2 figures, one black and one white, rapidly flew through the all-heaven starfield. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. What is it? Mu Qingxue asked. To the devil domain. Ning Chen replied. Mu Qingxue was startled after hearing this. Demon domain? There's no need to be surprised. The phoenix body said calmly, in order to destroy the underworld today, the Demon Palace has dispatched all of their experts. Right now, the Demon Domain's defense is at its weakest. With our speed, we will definitely be able to reach the underworld before the Demon Palace's sage and the 3 sects. We cannot waste this opportunity. Before the Demon Palace's experts return, we must quickly investigate the Demon Domain. Hearing this, a complicated expression appeared in Mu Qingxue's eyes. They had just experienced a battle of life and death with the underworld. Not only her, the other 9 Yama kings had likely not recovered their calm yet. Only he was able to maintain absolute calmness at a time like this. He immediately thought of investigating the Demon Palace before the Demon Palace's sage returned. Sometimes, she truly felt that his calmness was somewhat frightening. In the boundless starfield, 2 rays of light grew faster and faster, racing against time. In the Demon Domain, numerous palaces stood tall and majestic. The scene was extraordinary. Just as the sun was about to set, 2 figures arrived at the horizon with extreme speed, arriving before all the cultivators of the Devil Palace. Take off your mask. Right now, there is no need for us to use the identity of the underworld. Ning Chen raised his hand and took off the evil impermanence mask on his face, returning to his original appearance. His red clothes appeared and his long hair fluttered in the wind. Mu Qingxue also raised his hand and took off the mask on his face. Looking at the palaces in front of him, he narrowed his eyes and said, "There are still experts." Ningchen nodded and said, "Two of the Seven Sins sect's experts died in the battle, one was severely injured, and now there are 3 who have yet to return. Therefore, there should still be one who remains here." Mu Qingshue's divine sense swept over and nodded slightly, saying, "Let's go. Time is of the essence, let's go in first." After speaking, the 2 did not delay any further. Their figures flashed and flew towards the demon domain in front of them. With the Heavenly Book's cover and the Chaos Scroll's cover, the 2 figures disappeared and no trace of their auras could be sensed. In the vast and boundless demon domain, groups of demon soldiers patrolled. There were countless experts who were hidden. The demon palace's foundation was astonishing. 2 rays of light flashed past, avoiding the patrolling groups and rushing towards the depths of the demon palace. "You seem to be very familiar with this place?" Mu Qingxue looked at the man leading the way in front of him and asked curiously. "Previously, for Ziyi's injuries, I had the demon body hide here. Therefore, I have some understanding of the demon palace's terrain." Ningchen explained simply. "I see." Mu Qingxue nodded. His gaze swept across the demon palaces as a serious expression flashed across his face. He didn't feel it clearly when he was outside, but now that he was inside, he could feel how terrifying the demon palace was. Almost every palace had a true realm expert guarding it. The number of experts in the demon palace was truly terrifying. After walking for 100 miles, the sacred palace of the demon palace appeared in front of them. The 2 paused for a moment and pondered for a moment before flying in. Thousands of treasures were displayed in the majestic sacred palace, shining with a dazzling brilliance. The throne at the highest point was empty, but it still gave off an indescribable pressure. The 2 stopped. Ningchen looked at the throne in front of him and a strange expression flashed across his face. This aura was exactly the same as the demon lord's. It seemed that the demon palace's master had entered the 4th realm. Beside the throne was a demon wand that symbolized royal authority inserted into the ground. It was dark gold and was luxurious. An abnormally strong demon chi flowed from it, surpassing any divine weapon. It was so heavy that it made it hard for one to breathe. Demon weapon Holy Brilliance. Ningchen looked at the demon wand beside the throne and squinted his eyes. It was the legendary weapon of the demon lords. "This trip is worth it." Ningchen raised his hand and shouted. He activated all of his techniques. Suddenly, phoenix flames filled the sky. After the huge phoenix wings appeared, the majestic phoenix origin rose rapidly and reached the peak. Beside the throne, the demon weapon of the king's power sensed it and immediately vibrated. Waves of demon chi surged out to resist the phoenix fire. Holy and demon chi were natural enemies. They collided violently in the hall. The demon weapon that no one was controlling was not at a disadvantage at all. It forcibly resisted the phoenix fire. Seeing this, Mu Qingshue's figure flashed and flew to the front of the throne. He condensed his origin energy and released all of his techniques to suppress the demon chi of the king's power. With the 2 of them working together, the demon weapon of the king's power trembled. The surging demon chi was forced back little by little, and it was at a disadvantage. Knowing that the Chaos Scroll could not be hidden for long, Ningchen took a step forward and also came to the front of the throne. The phoenix appeared behind him and forcibly swallowed the demon weapon of the king's power. When the demon weapon entered his body, it quickly backfired. Ningchen groaned and blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Presumptuous! At this moment, a terrifying and abnormal aura quickly recovered from the depths of the demon palace. In the next moment, a huge hand appeared in the sky above the demon palace. It passed through many obstacles and slammed down. Retreat! Ningchen forcefully suppressed the backfire in his body. He did not dare to stay any longer. He waved his sword and quickly retreated. Chapter 944. At the border of the 3 domains, 2 rays of light flashed across the endless starry sky. They stopped when they passed by thousands of meteorites. Ningchen walked out of the phoenix transformation, but he staggered. After a series of battles and forcefully sealing the demonic weapon, Holy Glory, his body could not take it anymore. Mu Qingxue went forward and supported the former. He asked softly, "Can you still hold on?" Ningchen nodded and smiled tiredly. "Let's go back first." The divine restriction was activated. The two of them put on their masks and stepped into it. In the 10 halls of hell, the kings of hell felt it. They looked at the sky and narrowed their eyes. They are back. In front of the King Yenluo Palace, the King Yenluo in red walked out. He looked at the black and white impermanence descending from the sky and said, "Everyone, please come to the King Yenluo Palace for a meeting." In the 10 halls, the kings of hell nodded and took a step forward. Their figures disappeared instantly. The black and white impermanence appeared. In the guest halls, the powerhouses of Beiki and Ji family also came out. They looked at the elites of hell gathered in the King Yenluo Palace with strange expressions. In front of the meeting table in the King Yenluo Palace, the kings of hell took their seats. The head of the 10 halls, the King Yenluo in red waved his hand and closed the palace. He took off his mask and revealed a familiar face. Below him, the kings of hell also took off their masks. They looked at the two impermanences and asked, "Did you find anything?" The black and white impermanents raised their hands and took off their masks. With a loud phoenix cry, a phoenix manifested. Amidst the surging demonic chi, a luxurious dark golden scepter appeared. Boundless demonic chi swept through the entire palace, shocking everyone. In the next moment, the phoenix returned and merged into the main body. This is... Below him, the kings of hell were shocked. They stood up one after another, their hearts trembling. "The demonic weapon, Holy Glory," Ningchen said calmly. "The weapon of the past demon masters. Mu Qingxue and I sneaked into the demon domain to obtain it before the demon palace's saint and the others returned. What a terrifying demonic weapon." Below him, Mu Qianshang looked at the demonic weapon in front of him and said. All of the Yamakings nodded in agreement. This was only a weapon, and it hadn't even been used yet, but it was already imbued with such immense pressure. This was something that had never been seen before. One could imagine how terrifying this demonic weapon would be in the hands of the demon master. There is another piece of bad news. Ningchen looked at the crowd and said, "When we were trying to snatch this item, the master of the Devil Palace woke up again and tried to stop us. It seems that this Devil Lord will be coming out soon." The Lord of the Devil Palace has already reached the 4th level. Even without the Holy Glory, his strength is not something we can match. Now, the location of the underworld has been exposed. Knowing Destiny State, we have to make preparations again, Shi Yanxia said seriously. "I understand." Ningchen nodded and said, "I'll set up another restriction outside the underworld. I'll need your help in this matter. Besides that, we have to prepare for the worst. If we can't do it, we'll immediately abandon this place. So, we need to find a new base in advance." Everyone nodded. Luo Xingchen looked ahead and said, "Leave the matter of finding a new stronghold to me. Although it is difficult to find a spiritual vein in this world, it is not impossible to find it. It will just take some time." "Sure," Ningchen replied calmly. "Then the rest of you will follow me to set up the divine restriction. Knowing Destiny State, I have something that I don't understand." Mu Qianshang spoke from below and said seriously, "King Qi aside, why is the Ji family willing to take the initiative to go against the Devil Palace? With your relationship with the Ji family, it is impossible for you to influence the decision of the master of the Ji family. Whether the Ji family goes against the Devil Palace or not is not up to them. It is up to King Qi to decide." Ningchen said calmly, "The Beiki dynasty and the Ji family of the White Emperor City are neighbors. Once the Beiki dynasty goes against the Devil Palace, regardless of the outcome, the Devil Palace will not sit still. Being in the same region and even on the same star, the Ji family will not sit back and watch Beiki be destroyed by the Devil Palace. So, the Ji family and the Beiki alliance is a choice that has to be made." When everyone heard this, they nodded in understanding. It was true. If Beiki was destroyed, the Ji family's first opponent would not be the Beiki dynasty, but the ambitious Devil Palace. Knowing Destiny State, We owe King Qi a big favor. Mu Qianshang sighed softly. Beiqi's insistence on sending troops was undoubtedly because of King Qi. This move was equivalent to going against the Devil Palace in advance. The consequences were unpredictable. Ningchen nodded and said, I know. Next, we will fight against the Devil Palace together with Beiqi and the Ji family. This is our last chance. Once the spirit void is lost, the Devil Palace will control the 3 regions and take over the resources of the Ji family. No one in the world will be able to stop their footsteps. The kings of hell nodded. No matter what, now that Beiqi, the Ji family, and the Demon Palace's energy had been diverted, the Ziwei Galaxy and the inner world were temporarily safe. Theron, how is the strength of that Tian Kuei? Ningchen looked at the woman below and asked seriously. Unmeasurable. King Aaron spoke softly. When we fought, he obviously did not use his full strength. According to my judgment, his strength is at least on par with the head of the 3 clans, Mengyu sect. Hearing this, Ningchen frowned slightly. This is troublesome. He knew the strength of Mengyu sect very well. They had almost entered the 4th realm and were very terrifying. Now, the situation is basically clear. Below the seat, the woman said calmly, Mengyu sect and Tian Kuei, if we don't use our full strength, we won't be able to contend with them. Next are Di Kuei, Yu Yao, and Xing Hui. These 3 are equally powerful. It can be said that with everyone's strength, unless 2 or more of them join forces, it will be difficult to win. Jun Wenyan is the biggest variable. At his peak, his threat is not weaker than Mengyu and Tian Kuei. However, he was severely injured by Shenji earlier and his cultivation has declined. The demonic eye between his eyebrows seems to be unable to be used and is no longer at its peak. Of course, other than these 6, there is also the Saint of the Devil Palace who is unfathomable. In this battle, the combat strength displayed by the Saint is not weaker than anyone else. These wise men have always been good at hiding their strength. The kings of hell nodded gently. The strength of each of the Devil Palace's powerhouses could be said to be shocking. With the strength that they could use now, it was really difficult to deal with them. Female Supreme. Beside her, Mu Qianshang spoke and said seriously, I have a plan, I wonder if it will work? Hearing this, the woman looked away and said, Speak. I heard Jiming mention that there is a great formation in Changling that can increase the speed of cultivation. Can we use this formation to increase our strength in a short time? Mu Qianshang said seriously. The woman frowned and looked at Jiming. She said, You have to ask him about this. While that formation is in Changling, only your Jiming Marquis has truly entered in the past hundreds of years. This method is not feasible. Ningchen shook his head and refused directly. There are no shortcuts in the world. Any opportunistic action will have a greater price. Compared to using that formation, I would rather you all expose your identities. Why? Mu Qianshang's eyes narrowed. He said, Give us a reason. Below, the kings of hell looked at the former, waiting for an answer. Jiming. The woman said softly, Tell them. What to choose, it is up to them to decide. Ningchen was silent. A moment later, he nodded and said, Changling's formation is similar to the time restriction in many ways. Through gathering spirit energy and accelerating the flow of time, it allows those who enter to increase their cultivation speed to the greatest extent. But there are gains and losses. The price of faster cultivation speed is the rapid loss of lifespan. This speed is beyond your imagination. Maybe 5 times, maybe 10 times. Making a deal with the heavens is never fair. What you lose is always more than what you gain. Also, when he spoke up to hear, Ningchen paused for a moment and hesitated for a moment before he continued. I presume all of you are aware of how difficult it was for me to step into the immortal treading realm from the perfection stage of the congenital realm. Besides my natural talent, to a certain extent, the abnormal methods I utilized to improve my cultivation and foundation all those years ago caused irreversible side effects. So, in these past 100 years, every step I took from the congenital realm to the immortal treading realm could be said to be bumpy and difficult to take a single step forward. Below, when the kings of hell heard this, they fell silent. At the head of the table, Ning Chen looked at the kings of hell below and said seriously, "Everyone, listen to my advice. In terms of talent and willpower, you are the best of the best in the world. It is rare to see someone enter true realm or even true realm in 100 years. Not long in the future, you are likely to touch the threshold of realm 4. Do not destroy your own future at this time." "What about you?" Mu Qianshang looked up and said gravely, "If we do not increase our strength, how can we fight against the experts of the Mo Palace? We can ignore our identities and reveal all our strength, but even if we can stop the twin chiefs of heaven and earth, and the 3 sects, if that Mo master comes out of seclusion, who can stop him? Are you going to sacrifice yourself to stop him? 100 years ago, if you chose this, we had no other choice. 100 years later, we will not allow you to do this again." "Good friend, the matter is not so bad." Ning Chen looked at the person in front of him and said, "No need to say more." Mu Qianshang directly interrupted the former and said coldly, "I have made up my mind. Female Supreme, please do me a favor." At the side, Female Supreme sighed softly and said, "Since you have made such a choice, I will do my best to help. Count me in." Opposite, Luo Xingchen smiled and said, "My cultivation was originally higher than theirs. Now that they have caught up, it is really embarrassing. No matter what, I have to find a way to surpass them. Count me in too." At the side, Jian Er said lightly and did not say anything else. At the head of the table, Ning Chen's expression changed again and again. He was unwilling and wanted to persuade them again. "Ji Ming, put away your great principles. We have long been tired of listening to it. We will make our own decisions." Mu Qianshang interrupted the former again and said rudely. Below the table, Madame Luo smiled and said, "Then I will go too. Zi's injuries are almost healed, I can leave with peace of mind." Xia Zi frowned when he heard this. "Ji Ming still needs people here. Can you stay and help him?" Madame Luo reached out and held the hand of the man beside her and smiled sweetly. Chapter 945. 4 Yama kings of the 10 palaces flew out of the 10 palaces of the underworld and returned to the underworld. After the divine restriction was activated, the 4 figures flew out and disappeared. In front of the Yama palace, the red-clothed Yama king looked at the 4 of them in the sky and remained silent. Not far away, a woman in white walked out from the Hall of Impermanence. She looked at the figure in front of King Yanlua's palace and her beautiful eyes flashed. "Miss Mu, do you regret it?" At some point in time, a beautiful figure appeared and spoke softly. "Why would I regret it?" asked Mu Qingxue calmly. He turned around and looked at the chief disciple of the heavenly music pavilion. "You chose to cultivate the great indifference and forget about the past, but you were willing to give up 100 years for him. I don't understand any of your choices," said Wu Qingying. "I cultivated the great indifference because Huang City needed a second Xiantian realm cultivator. As for giving up 100 years, Mu Qingxue looked at the 4 people disappearing into the horizon and said calmly, "If it were any of them, they would have made the same choice. There is nothing strange about it." "Do you remember what happened in the past?" Wu Qingying asked. Said Mu Qingxue. "The great indifference will strip away your memories bit by bit. The harder you work, the faster you'll forget. You'll become a person without a past. Do you really not regret it?" Wu Qingying asked. Said Mu Qingxue calmly. "If I forget, he'll tell me again. That's what we agreed on." "You two are really the strangest people in the world," sighed Wu Qingying. "It's not that we're strange, it's that everyone wants a perfect ending," said Mu Qingxue calmly. "I know that you all want me to be with him, but we can't go back to the past. Even if we go back to the past, we'll still make the same choice. I have my own responsibilities and he has his own responsibilities. In this world, love isn't the only thing that matters. There are many things that are equally important." "You're really similar," said Wu Qingying emotionally. "Since you don't regret it, I'm relieved. Rest early. You've used a lot of energy in the previous battles." Mu Qingxue nodded and agreed. Wu Qingying glanced at the 2 of them one last time, and then she didn't speak any further before she turned around and left. In front of the king of Hell's palace, Ningchen turned around and looked at the woman in white not far away. He smiled and said, "Want to go out for a walk?" In front of the impermanence palace, Mu Qingxue nodded and replied, "Okay." Taking a step forward, Mu Qingxue arrived before the King Yanluo's palace. Looking at the man beside him, Mu Qingxue said softly, "Let's go." Ningchen nodded and walked forward. Under the moonlight, the two of them walked side by side. The territory of hell was vast and boundless. The two of them didn't speak much as they walked along in silence. Beside King Yama's palace, in a side hall, Nangong Chang stood quietly. Beside her, was holding a plate of snacks and eating them. After staring for a long time, Nangong Chang turned around and looked at the girl beside her with a smile. This girl walked a completely different path from knowing destiny. Her talent was extraordinary, and she even went through the baptism of phoenix blood. Whether it was talent or cultivation resources, no one could compare to her. Even though she didn't like to cultivate, she still entered treading immortal realm in 100 years. Knowing destiny pampered this girl to the extreme. He gave her whatever she wanted. Adding the things that Man and Mu Qingxue gave her, this girl had a lot of treasures that no one could compare to. "Where did you get the hairpin on your head?" Nangong Chang asked with a smile. Hearing this, nodded. She removed the golden hairpin from her hair, and as she ate the dessert, she replied, "Ningchen snatched this from the western celestial realm. I thought it was pretty, so I asked him for it." Nangong Chang took the golden hairpin and looked at it. Then she put it back in the hair of the girl beside her and said softly, "This golden hairpin is Western Mother's personal item. It once shocked the 4 great immortal domains. It's even comparable to the 4 immortal swords. However, most of its power is sealed now, so it can't be used to its full potential. You must keep it well and don't lose it." Nodded vigorously and said, "Ningchen gave it to me. If I lose it, he will scold me." Nangong Chang chuckled and said, "If you weren't naughty, he wouldn't bear to scold you. Now that your mistress Mu is supporting you, he won't dare to scold you even more." Hearing this, smiled happily and said, "Nangong Chang, I heard that back then, you almost exhausted Ning Chen's lifespan. What happened?" "It's a long story." Nangong Chang said softly, "Back then, after the great calamity of the divine lands, your master's life source was exhausted. I originally wanted to use the soul-searching art to obtain the cultivation method of the life scroll before he died and help me break through to treading immortal realm. However, at that time, your master's 3 souls were incomplete and his memories were a mess. I had no choice but to use all of Changling's resources to save your master and help him repair his 3 souls." And then, Nangong Chang looked at the red-robed figure in the distance and continued, "Your master owed me a debt of saving his life and promised to use the life scroll to exchange for it. Therefore, I brought him to a forbidden land in Changling and used a forbidden formation to help him cultivate the life scroll again. Unexpectedly, in the forbidden formation, your master's lifespan was exhausted unexpectedly quickly. After I stripped away his cultivation method, his lifespan was also exhausted." Heard this before and asked fearfully, "How was it resolved?" "Northern Plains Heavenly Music Pavilion." Nangong Chang said calmly, "The Heavenly Music Pavilion has a soundtrack that can communicate with the great Tao of heaven and earth. With this item, the master of the Heavenly Music Pavilion has abilities ordinary people do not have and can even help people extend their lives." "So powerful," said with an envious expression. "There is always a price to pay for everything." Nangong Chang sighed softly and said, "Do you know why the master of the Heavenly Music Pavilion agreed to help your master extend his life? Wasn't it you who went to ask for it?" Asked in puzzlement. Nangong Chang shook her head and said, "No matter how good a relationship is, it cannot compare to 100 years. It was Mu Qingxue who used 100 years of his freedom in exchange for the master of the Heavenly Music Pavilion to extend your master's life for 100 years. I have been hiding this from him so your master did not know." Hearing this, his eyes shook and she had a disbelieving expression. Now that 100 years have passed and Mu Qingxue has regained his freedom, there is no need to hide this matter. However, if he does not ask, you do not have to tell him, Nangong Chong said softly. He nodded vigorously and said, Mistress Mu is so good. I will listen to Mistress in the future. Nangong Chong smiled softly and said, Mu Qingxue has always been cold on the outside but warm on the inside. No matter what she cultivated or forgot, her nature will not change. The first time you met, she was willing to give you her travel scroll. This can be said to love the house and its crow. Although she has forgotten, but it is impossible for there not to be any trace of what happened. In the distance, under the cold moon, the shadows of the two grew longer. After 100 years, they stayed together for a night. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.